when they all broke at the exact same instant inside other people's heads, and the body the system assigned him was already broken before he even learned the man's name. Other entities got lucky: clean throats, soft ground; his host, a total disaster. A twisted ankle, scraped arm, dry tongue, and an empty, burning stomach. Fever spiked high. His only weapon was a weak, basic thought blade. The brain shield cracked at minimum tier, leaving only a weak instinct signal. One word per activation. The host would die before sundown unless he learned fast. No talent here, only survival. He had to learn this forest instantly. The only teacher in this brutal wilderness was the deadly cost of being slow. Death was the price. The host felt pain, a cold, heavy, and inescapable pain. It throbbed behind the left ankle, so real it anchored his entire consciousness. He understood that physical damage before he even knew what he was. Inside the host's skull, the mental shelter settled. Faint light lit the curved walls. It felt less like bone and more like the tense space of a held breath. A soft chime echoed in the dark. System alert, mental shelter sealed at minimum. A second ping, weak thought blade equipped, then one last soft chime. Instinct signal online, limited to one word. The host's status panel flickered open. Thirst and hunger levels both flashed danger amber. The situation was already grim. The host's fever crept into the orange zone. A sprained ankle and scraped arm flashed. Multiple injuries registered on the display. Worst of all, fear pinned at solid red. Total energy, just 1 out of 50. He quickly closed the status screen. He stared at the curved skull wall, his only barrier against absolute annihilation. Looking through the host's eyes, he saw sodden leaves, pale gray light filtered down. It was that gloomy, undecided glare following a heavy rainstorm. Massive trees towered above. Round the host, the bark was darker brown than any tree he ever knew. Here, with broader, glossier leaves weighed down heavily by water catching the gray light in small, shimmering beads, the host lay helpless on his back. His right hand pressed the damp soil. His left hand shook uncontrollably. He tried to speak, but the mental hide blocked every single sound. The man only felt a strange pressure behind his eyes, then nothing. The system rules were brutally clear. Instinct signal was his only language. Anything more had to wait. A bush rustled. Something dangerous was coming. Through the host's ears, he heard heavy breathing. A four-legged beast approached. It pushed the branches apart, staying low to the ground, out of sight. He froze completely, total body lock. Even his throat closed up in terror. He choked back a desperate gasp. Fear spiked violently on the system display. The red gauge flared. Behind him, a sharp crack split the mental wall. A bizarre hum vibrated through the gap. A dry, scratching chew sounded close. From the floor emerged a sickening, toothy, gray creature the size of an arm. It possessed nasty yellow teeth and dead, flat eyes. The system immediately identified it. An inner threat, a fear rat. Already the creature was chewing the wall. Its sharp teeth scraped deep grooves into the dome. If it fails, they die. If the barrier shatters, the shelter collapses, and with it, he vanishes forever. Once he fades, this helpless man on the ground will lose his only savior. The beast in the brush is a boar. He slowly raises his weapon. A thought blade suddenly manifests, shorter and far lighter than it should be. A thin, steady hum runs along the edge. Taking a step toward the giant rat, he sets his back foot and swings hard across its neck. The blade slices through clean, down the beast. Falls, dissolving into a wave of heat that flows up his arm and straight into the chest. Mental energy ticks up by 2, and the spreading crack behind him finally stops. That was only kill number 1, with many more to come. First instinct takes over: hide. The command is less of a spoken word and more of a burning heat sent straight into the host. His eyes blink twice, his shoulders tense, though he does not quite understand the sudden urge, but his body knows what to do, and his shoulders are already turning him toward a massive fallen log on his left. He needs to move. But speaking is impossible with the cooldown active. Still, the young man crawls across the damp earth, dragging himself forward on his elbows while keeping his badly twisted ankle off the soil. His scraped arm leaves a thin trail of blood on the fallen leaves, broad and half rotten. The massive fallen log reveals a soft pocket of green moss along its damp underside. He slips behind it, flattening his body and burying his face into the soft moss. Holding his breath, his shallow gasps send tiny tremors through the green patches. Suddenly, a massive wild boar crashes through, far larger than any normal beast. Its back rises as high as the log, sporting giant tusks that drag against low-hanging branches. Thick mud mats its hide, the beast snorts loudly right where the young man had touched the dirt. It snorts twice more at the fresh blood on the leaves, then slowly walks away. Talk about a close call. The beast completely ignores the log as the system screen flashes threat past. It was a low-grade forest boar. He remains frozen in the moss long after the snorts fade. Gradually, his tense shoulders relax. The red on his fear indicator shifts. Back down toward orange, the mental shelter cools down by half a degree as he finally breathes. It is his first real moment of peace, pushing himself. Up he puts weight onto his injured ankle, and the pain panel jumps up a hole. Here he collapses backward, palm flat against the log. Then he reaches up to pull a broad, glossy leaf from a low branch and pours the trapped rain water straight into his mouth. Fortunately, his climbing thirst bar immediately drops to a stable amber level. Inside him, it feels like a rattling door has finally been shut tight. By pure luck, his searching hand finds a root while trying to grab a stable handhold. He pulls up a thin, pale, soul-covered stem. Taking a bite, he almost spits it out. But chews anyway. The system panel tags it as an edible, bitter root with low calories and mild stomach risk. He chews a few more bites, dropping his hunger by one tick. Nearby, he spots a palm-sized stone with a flat side and a sharp, broken edge. He instinctively picks it up, turning it over in his hands, and his expression completely changes. Up until this very moment, he has never owned a single tool in his entire life. Pressing the stone against his thigh, he grips the flat side tightly and opens his hand again, practicing and learning the grip. The panel coldly tags it as a tool acquired, a low-grade cutting stone. A wave of warmth spreads, stabilizing his brain shelter integrity. His instinct sharpens, reducing the skill cooldown. Finally, he looks at his swollen ankle. Before this, he had not really examined the injury. The joint has turned a deep purple that definitely will not heal anytime soon. Around the swollen joint, the skin is stretched tight and shiny. His pain rating immediately spikes from amber to bright orange. The spirit registers what the joint has become, the first lesson taught by the forest. It learns a deep truth about the host. He hurts more just seeing the injury. Visual panic makes it worse. Then, from the floor, a second shape pushes up. Not a rat, something long, black, and wet. The creature moves like a leech, collapsing its front and dragging its back. This thing does the exact same. Its body is as long as a human arm. Slowly, it wraps itself 3 times around a thick, warm cable. The system tags this line as the motor control for the left leg. As the parasite tightens, pain on the host's status panel spikes to a new level. No new injury. The spirit lifts its blade, but the pest is too slick. The edge slides right off the black back. A second swing skids away uselessly. The third strike lands flat and bounces. Each attempt drains 2 points of mental energy. But the host's pain keeps climbing. Seriously, how is he supposed to survive this? Pain has rules. It is a living creature here. The spirit backs away. It watches the parasite squeeze the warm cable in slow, rhythmic pulses. Every single squeeze pushes the orange level higher, amplifying the agony from within. The host feels his ankle throbbing far worse than he actually should. The injury is real, but the parasite is multiplying the effect, if it cannot be cut. Maybe it can be starved. What does it feed on? The spirit closes its inner eyes. Where is it feeding? Surely not on the joint itself, nor the purple bruise. And not on the bruise. Its true food source is a traumatic memory. The exact second his ankle snapped, that moment exists as a tiny red bead in the cable. The parasite's mouth sucks directly from it. The beast itself is too tough to harm. But the bead is vulnerable. The spirit raises the blade and aims for it. This bead is not made of flesh. It is pure memory, soft like damp fabric. The edge catches, sinking into the soft target. The spirit presses down slowly. Slowly, the bead ruptures. It releases a thin, gray smoke that reeks of pure terror. Above, the host blinks and frowns. Looking through his eyes, the spirit watches him calm down. He stares at his swollen ankle. Without that instant flinch, the purple bruising remains. His mind is no longer adding raw, blinding panic to the picture. Sensing its food supply drying up, the parasite squeezes the cable harder. It desperately tries to drain a dying source. The spirit strikes the bead again. The bead shatters, the parasite shudders, its dark body going limp. It slips off the cable, shriveling into itself as gray smoke rises from its remains. Finally, a breakthrough. A new line opens on the internal panel, pain control unlocked. This new thread is exactly what it sounds like. A silver cord appears. It connects the spirit's hand to the leg cable. Pinching the silver dampens the signal. But this neural block costs precious energy. completely erasing the pain is impossible. The most the spirit can do is turn the volume down half a tick. Above, the host stirs. He pushes himself up from the log on his elbows. He shifts his weight onto his good leg, glancing down and then skyward. Night is falling. Sundown is just 2 fingers off the distant tree line. Storm clouds gather overhead, and the heavy leaves begin to bow under the wind. He has to move before he loses the light. Down in the internal chamber, another instinct wakes. The word is rap, a simple command, but it carries a much wider meaning. Rather than hide, he pushes onward. That effort drains his mental energy by 3 points. Heat flares across his neck like a warning, and he drops his face to his torn sleeve. His eye catches the shirt fabric before his brain even processes it. Twisting his fingers around the fabric, he tears a strip down the seam. He then tears a second piece. Quickly searching for straight sticks, he finds 2 within arm's reach. Both are finger-thick and straight. While he wraps the ankle, the parasite inside writhes. Every tight turn of the cloth dampens a portion of his severe bruising. The makeshift splint steadies the broken joint, feeding on that fractured bone. The parasite finds its meal shrinking. With the injury stabilized, the creature starts to thin out. He pulls the fabric incredibly tight, tighter than the entity ever would. His fingers are mercilessly rough on his own body. He places the sticks alongside his ankle, and the second cloth strip locks them in. Once he ties the knot, the ankle stabilizes. Pain registers as orange but stops rising. Once again, he forces himself up to his feet. Putting weight on the wrapped ankle causes an immediate spike. He hisses. Through his teeth, breathes and remains upright. A totally different feeling suddenly stirs. Deep in his chest, something unlisted on any system panel. Genuine pride, that warm feeling. Is brief, but it lingers long enough to make the inner parasite shrink even more. Pride starves the pain leeches. The internal entity records this quiet observation. He limps forward, every step a brutal struggle. Using a sharp cutting stone, he hacks a thick branch off a nearby tree and quickly fashions a rough walking stick. He snaps off the extra twigs and tests the support under his arm. With 3 points of contact, he limps forward without collapsing. He heads straight downhill. That is his entire plan. Going down means finding water, and water means potential shelter. Because the canopy is thinner on the slope, daylight will last slightly longer here. He is not calculating this. His survival instincts are. From behind his eyes, the entity watches his body work. The improvised cane taps the ground, each strike matching. A sharp shock to his wrapped ankle. His healthy leg is forced to do double duty, which will surely demand a harsh physical toll later. The system marks this down on a private ledger running quietly right beside the main interface, labeling the entry as good leg debt. Down the slope he goes for several grueling minutes. Even on this gentle slope, the wet mud causes his cane to slip. The second time he crashes hard onto his injured side. Pain instantly skyrockets, and the leech swells back to 2/3 of its original size. The entity pinches the silver thread, dropping the agony slightly. He stops trembling, gathers himself, and pushes forward. Halfway down the slope, he hits a dry creek bed. There is no water here, likely redirected by a mudslide, leaving only fist-sized smooth stones, though he can hear rushing water up ahead. This empty path offers a much flatter route. Choosing to follow it, his stick now strikes hard stone rather than slick mud. His speed doubles as the daylight fades. Suddenly, the entity spots a hollow tree. About 30 paces ahead on the right bank, its massive trunk looks wide enough to fit 2 people, and its base opening faces safely away from the cold wind. The hollow remains dry. Inside, the dirt floor is loose and bug-pocked. He spots the sanctuary at the exact same moment the entity does and stick toward it. Above, the first raindrops hit the dense canopy. The drops come slowly at first, a light patter before turning into an absolute deluge. He swings into the hollow, lowering his bad leg first, followed by the good one. He settles back against the wood, his shoulders easily fitting the curve. From the hollow's mouth, he can see 8 paces of the dry creek bed. Rain falls and he breathes. For the first time since the bore, he has a ceiling. He pulls the cutting stone from his pocket, setting it on his thigh. He stares at it for a long moment. His face shifts, showing a new expression. A grim line forms at the corner of his mouth. He finally understands this tool. The system sends no signal. The host must handle this on his own. Above, readout updates. Outer shelter acquired, a temporary hollow tree. It is partially weatherproof. The host's fear level shifts from red to orange. This fear line moving is the first big drop recorded. Before, the red only Thin, but now it slides steadily toward orange. The system feels its hide. Warm up slightly, the front wall crack has finally stopped widening. This is a first since its arrival. Around the system, the inner space changes shape, the room curves outward by an inch on either side. Above, a ceiling lifts, a second tiny, fist-sized alcove opens at the back wall. And inside the alcove is a notch to rest the thought blade when not. Holding it, the system had been holding the blade since the bore, and its spectral fingers ache. Placing the blade in the notch, the system sits down for the first time. Its hide has grown. That growth was paid for with a fear rat, a pain leech, and a hide. Signal that worked, plus one rap signal, and the leg debt owed to the host. Outside the hollow tree, rain pours in dark sheets down the massive trunks. The host sits with his back to the wood, then chews two more lengths of bitter root, then drinks a slow handful of clean rain that gathers. In a curl of bark, his hunger drops a tick, and thirst reaches green. For the first time, he slowly closes his eyes, but sleep does not come. Instead, he simply rests. Across the floor, a tiny shape moves under loose dirt. He hears it, and his eyes snap open. Quickly, his hand goes to the stone in his pocket before he relaxes. A blind, fat, pale larva has surfaced. Curling and the size of his thumb joint, he stares at it for a long count. He does not move, then his hand reaches out, picks the larva up, and inspects it. As hunger nudges him, he does not hesitate and pops the larva straight in his mouth, chewing quickly with a tight wince. Hey, survival isn't always pretty. A protein hit registers on the readout, edible, mid-calorie forest larva. It has a bitter aftertaste, but his shoulders settle. He's not afraid to eat. Beside him, a broken branch leans against the inner wall of the hollow. Its broken end is thick as his wrist. Without looking at it for long, he reaches over to test the weight, then sets it across his knees. It is not a weapon yet, but a club waiting to find its purpose. That is enough for their first afternoon. The rain continues falling as the outside light fades away. Inside its room, the system opens a private readout for mental energy. It sits at 1150 after various expenditures and faint recoveries. The pain control thread is ready, and the instinct signal cooldown is short. Outside, water gathers in the dry creek bed. The dry creek is now a running stream. Through the host's eyes, the system watches the water start to flow. The water runs brown fast and choked with leaf debris, pale foam bubbling on top. From within, the system's HUD highlights the stream with a sharp amber glow. That amber edge sharpens to red. The host's green thirst level suddenly twitches. Inside the UI's tiny grid, microscopic green worms wriggle right against the bar. Tiny larval bodies curl in the stagnant flow. Out here, thirst is never simple. Above the worms, a warning tag pops up over the creek. Water source. Vein root creek, contamination high, parasite risk severe, but the host hasn't noticed. He cannot see the system's warnings. Only the sound of running water reaches him. His tongue darts out. His dry throat swallows once, his eyes locked on the creek. A narrow brown ribbon of water snakes across the dry bed. His throat gulps again. His thirst level spikes back to amber as his greedy eyes demand a drink. Through his ears, the system registers the soft rush. Inside his mouth, a coppery dryness aches desperately for that cold, running water. The green worms on the system's display multiply, 6 of them now, then 8. Then 10. They aren't real worms yet, just the system's way of warning him. Drinking that brown ribbon will guarantee real parasites swarm inside him within hours. Forest survival has its own harsh language. The system speaks it through raw visuals. Icons and warnings land much harder than text when a mind is consumed by fear. He leans forward. A simple command won't work now. This needs something much stronger. The system needs a way to force a stop, but stop is hard for a desperate body. The system pushes a signal. Wait. The command hits him like heat across his collarbones. He freezes, good knee bent beneath him, hand braced at the edge of the hollow. But the heat quickly fades. His eyes drift right back to that brown ribbon of water. His hand slides forward again. The signal failed. The system's mental energy drops. Down 3 points for nothing. The parasite count on the screen hits 11, then 12. Each is a thin, writhing thread of green on the display. Above them, the warning glows. The host is miles away from understanding the danger. The system has a choice. Let him drink, let his body shudder with writhing parasites for days. That would waste half of the remaining energy fighting off his fever and panic. Or it can intervene now, spend a massive chunk of energy to force a stop. Push a raw, high-level command and hope it takes root in his mind. A stronger signal sits locked in the interface, unused. It's called Danger Pulse. Cost half of its current energy reserves minimum. The system checks the tank. 11 left, half means dropping to 5. At 5, it cannot even swing a blade. The worm count spikes to 15. He leans closer, fingers brushing the brown water. The system triggers Danger Pulse. What erupts isn't a word, but a violent shock. A heavy bolt of raw terror surges from the core straight into his chest. The shock travels down his arm. His hand freezes just half an inch from the surface. His shoulders snap back. He wrenches his face away from the stream, gasping. He collapses backward onto his good knee. System energy drops down to 5. He sits on the muddy edge, drawing in shallow, desperate gasps of air. His pupils are completely blown. His chest heaves under the weight of the phantom shock. His entire nervous system registered the pulse like a sudden drop into pitch darkness. He has no idea what just hit him. He only knows his body refused to move. That silent, involuntary refusal is the only reason he is still alive. A soft sensation stirs deep within him as he stares at the murky brown water with newfound suspicion. Looking down at his hand, a new prompt appears, his Danger Pulse is unlocked, increasing his maximum energy to 60. The system rewards him for almost dying. But 5 energy on a 60-point bar is no better than 5 on a 50-point bar tonight. Even so, the next time the pulse triggers, his baseline capacity will be much higher. Whether that promise keeps him alive tonight remains to be seen. He slowly pulls himself back. Inside, sitting with his shoulders pressed against the wood, he stares out at the brown stream glare locked on a world that lied to him. Drinking is out of the question. But the desperate need for water remains, prompting his system to scan for a clean source. Searching the hollow's inner walls, he spots a patch of damp moss clinging to the curve. Roughly 3 hand widths above his head, it is a much darker green than the surrounding wood, signaling a hidden moisture source. He spots the damp patch instantly. Reaching up with his uninjured hand, he presses 2 fingers against the moss and twists. A bead of clear liquid trickles down his palm. He licks it, and a clean prompt drops onto his interface: edible tree moss water, low volume, 0 parasite risk. He carefully works the moss in slow strokes, gathering tiny drops of water at the base of his thumb. His throat swallows 3 times, finally pulling his severe thirst level out of danger. A second patch sits even higher, and he stretches to reach it. Suddenly, his head turns. Outside, somewhere across the damp creek bed, a steady clicking begins in the leaf litter. It is the distinct clatter of countless tiny legs moving in perfect formation across the dry leaves. He hears it and immediately freezes in absolute silence. The clicking sound grows louder and more layered, expanding into a terrifying rumble. A literal carpet of sound is moving steadily across the forest floor, heading straight toward his hollow trunk. Inside his mind, the system warnings instantly sharpen. Threat levels rise. With hunger, fog, and panic incoming, the external threat is a mid-grade forest ant. Swarm entirely scent-driven. These forest ants do not hunt humans, but they smell food. Scraps from the discarded larva. Realizing the danger instantly, his uninjured hand darts to the opening of the trunk. He scoops up handfuls of loose, dry dirt, throwing it backward to cover the scent, then desperately wipes his sleeve across the edge. But his time is up. The crawling carpet is barely 20 paces away. He looks up. Several low branches stretch directly above him inside the hollow trunk, and one reaches out over the dry creek bed towards safety. He locks his eyes onto it. Down below, the massive swarm is already rounding the bend of the dry creek, rolling into view like a dark, glinting carpet. His internal interface urgently commands him to climb as adrenaline floods his body. His strong hand grips a sturdy knot of bark. At shoulder height, searing pain flares in his ankle as he forces both legs to push upward, but his makeshift wrap holds. He quickly tucks his walking stick into his belt. His cutting stone is safe in his front pocket, but he abandons his wooden club. Against the wall, with both hands needed to climb, he pulls himself up into the lower branches, but as he scales the bark, a heavy hunger fog rolls over his senses. His system anticipated this, knowing the single larva from earlier barely nudged his hunger bar out of the danger zone. Now, the overwhelming smell of the approaching swarm, mixed with the sheer terror of climbing with a broken ankle, triggers an absolute panic that is impossible to fight with a clear head. A gray haze rises rapidly inside his mind, thickening at his knees as it relentlessly pushes forward. They drift upward, carrying tiny white shapes the size of fingernail clippings, and these little shapes are eyeless, mouthless worms, the exact ones the system refers to as Panic worms, they crawl between the joints of any thought it tries to. Assemble, one clean sweep slices through the fog, killing 4 of them. 4 down, 20 more are already coming up out of the floor. So it stops wasting swings on them, it aims for the source instead, the hunger. Fog pours from a single seam in the floor. The system drives its blade into the gap, twisting and prying until it halfway closes, thinning the fog. Above, the host reaches the second branch. He intentionally drops some larvae. Crumbs from his shirt pocket as he edges toward the neighboring trunk. The crumbs tumble far below, safely away from his actual trail. The leading edge of the crawling ant carpet reaches the hollow, glints pouring in as they find bait. The soft dirt where the larvae rested lures the rest, but him they miss. They miss him. He swings to the next trunk, but a bad angle strikes. The rough bark pain spikes. He slips 3 feet down, catching a lower branch. Right under his armpit, his grip holds, even as his ankle screams in agony. The wrap holds tighter than the system expected. Below, the swarm devours the crumbs in 9 quick breaths, searching for more. Their dark carpet thins out as it spreads. They turn away, retreating down the dry bed back the way they came. The host waits in the neighboring tree for a long moment. Meanwhile, the system cuts the last of the hunger fog. The floor seam seals completely flat. The system rests on the floor. Moment, hand pressed to its chest. The energy bar reads only 4 of 60. There is nothing left. The host slowly climbs down the far side of the neighboring trunk, keeping away from the dry bed. His feet touch soft pine needles, a faint scent of old smoke drifts from the east. It is faint, like the scent a damp canopy traps. Long after the fire has died, he notices it, and so does the system. He uses his walking stick to step off the lowest tree knot. Guided by the scent, he circles back through the pine needles toward a small glowing ember shape on the ground 20 paces past the neighboring trunk, an ember nest. He spots it, and so does the system readout, a low-grade, wild ember nest with minor fire risks. It offers warmth if managed properly. He approaches slowly. The body is dry moss with a single glowing coal the size of a thumbnail. It has been sleeping under the damp canopy for ages. He gently places his cutting stone beside the coal, building a small ring of stones around it. Then, he gathers a handful of dry bark from a nearby branch to feed the tiny ember. Smoke begins to rise. He gently coaxes it, cupping his palms around the faint warmth. Leaning in close, he blows 1, 2, 3 soft breaths in a row until a tiny flame catches a corner of the bark. A system notification pops up. Fire acquired. The ember stage output is set to minimum fuel. His expression shifts once more. This change feels entirely different. A profound new quiet settles deep in his eyes. It is not about safety, for safety is still far away. It is about being someone who can spark warmth where none existed. Pride starves the leeches, but fire starves something even greater. The system feels that dark, larger presence. Thinning out at the edges of his fear bar, it drops 1 full tear. For the very first time, it rests at orange instead of red. Beside the new ember, a flat stone the size of 2 palms rests nearby, featuring a smooth, worn hollow on its upper face. He remembers brushing past a similarly shaped stone while crawling on the ground to escape. The giant ants, the cutting stone in his pocket, had scraped against that smooth hollow in the rock face he had not turned to look at, yet the shape remained etched in his mind. Now it returns. He uses the cutting stone to scrape clean rainwater from a curl of bark into the hollow of that stone by the burning embers, placing the makeshift bowl on a heated rock right beside the fire. He waits as steam rises and the water warms. Soon, he lifts the heated liquid to his mouth, drinking slowly. Clean water acquired with absolutely zero risk of parasites. The warmth brings a welcome bonus as he gulps down 2 stone bowls. His thirst is completely quenched, marking the first genuinely good thing of the day. Inside the curved shelter, the system readout updates. Mental energy storage has upgraded, and capacity now reads 64. Recovery rate is slightly up, though that fight cost everything. As a reward, the system gains a slightly bigger container, taking whatever it can get. Above, the forest canopy turns nearly black as rain thins to a soft fall. Around him, the forest evening noises wake up, filled with owls and low groans. That might be wind or some massive creature turning over in its sleep. He sits beside the glowing ember, letting out a heavy breath. The day is finally over. Then the warning flashes. Sleep warning, nightmare hollow access may initialize during his first deep sleep. A secondary notification appears right underneath, small and easy to miss. It warns that hosts with high fear and low rest attract nightmare hollow contact. The system monitors the host's exhaustion bar, which has been steadily rising all afternoon under the heavy toll of physical pain and raw fear, and now, sitting beside the warm embers, that bar has crossed the danger line. The day has ended, but what follows is a night with rules yet unlearned. He refuses to sleep. The ember beside him burns low, casting warmth across his cheek. Yet his eyes remain wide open, every faint sound from the wet canopy triggers his survival instincts, and each reaction takes a toll. Inside the shelter, the system watches his exhaustion bar climb past the critical threshold. Anything beyond that point actively ravages his body. His pulse runs uneven, and reaction times slow down when a man refuses to sleep because of fear. His body begins making critical survival choices that his mind has never agreed to. System reserves are down to 6 out of 60 after working all evening. To keep the shelter walls cool, a new fear rat pushed through the floor 20 minutes. Go taking 2 swings to kill. Another appeared 10 minutes later, followed by a third. Right behind it, costing 2 energy each. Faster enemy regrowth triggers when his fear spikes, and any miss leaves another crack in the system's walls. Fear rats are. The rent fear charges to survive, and the system is paying a heavy price. As he stares blankly at the ember, a 4th rat pushes through the shelter floor. Right inside the room, a quick swing kills it, leaving just 4 energy. He stares at the glowing embers. A 5th rat appears, and this clean cut costs 2 energy, leaving only 2. Above, a much heavier sound moves outside the tree trunk. Through his ears, the system registers a presence larger than a fox but smaller than a boar. Stepping onto the soft pine needles outside, its even tread and wide, quiet breathing reveal that whatever is pacing out there is hunting, and it has all the time in the world. Circling the trunk where his ember glows, the host hears it too, his shoulders instantly locking. The glowing ember catches a cold light in his eyes. He stays completely still, ignoring the cutting stone, the walking stick, and the soft bark. Instead, he just freezes, sitting upright, breath shallow, eyes wide with terror as fear spikes. Hard, a 6th fear rat scratches near his heel, with a 7th right behind the wall behind him. The heavy fog along the floor seam tries to creep back. The entity has 2 energy left. If it swings the blade now, power drops to 0, and the wall behind him will tear open. The rats will flood in faster than it can slash them, and if that happens, neither the entity nor the host will survive to see tomorrow. So it holds back. Instead, it sits down. There is still one desperate trick left untried: a brain's natural defense the menu calls a memory map. Until this moment, the system only listed it. The map never formed because the host's mind has been pure forward motion, no record keeping, no looking back. But fear is a form of memory too. Now watch. Even fear, sitting perfectly still, can be mapped. The entity closes its eyes. Inside the shelter, walking the host's entire day backward. First, the warm ember nest at his feet, then the dangerous climb across to the neighboring trunk. Following that, the massive carpet of ants. Earlier, the brown ribbon and that first brave signal. Earlier still, the tight wrap. Before that, the moss water. Then the bitter root. Earlier, the same bitter root. Earlier still, the massive boar. At the start of the day, the fallen log. Each place pins itself to the air. Around him, a faint wheel of light begins to assemble in the dark room. The menu opens on its own. The memory map is finally forming. Locations registered: fallen log, dry creek bed, hollow tree shelter, ant corridor, and the ember nest. Status of each log is hidden: creek dangerous, tree shelter abandoned, ant corridor clear, and the active ember nest. Reward: mental energy regenerates faster while the host occupies a mapped location. The system does not ask the entity to do anything. The boost arrives. 6 energy surges back in just 2 seconds. He draws a deep breath he did not even know he was holding. Now the entity stands back up. The wall behind him has finally steadied. Both rats sense the room's slight warming, slowing their fierce gnawing. The entity swings once. The 6th rat dies. Energy drops by 2, but regeneration keeps running while they rest in the mapped ember nest. Net cost is 0. The map turns under its touch. A small wheel of light catching faint heat. It rests its palm on the wheel. Studying the 5 mapped points, one is missing. The map has not registered the neighboring trunk where he dropped to escape the swarm. He spent only 30 seconds there. The map requires more than 30 seconds of attention to fully record a place, leaving that trunk unmarked. This bothers the entity, but nothing can be done to fix it now. A new sound echoes in the dark. The stalking creature stops. It's circling, drawing closer to the trunk's base. Its breathing grows deeper. and slower the way breath slows when something is about to strike, the host. Here's the shift. His left hand grips the cutting stone, his right finding the walking stick. Mental energy remains steady at 6. The entity pushes. Stillness is harder. Then hiding tells him to crouch. Where hiding ends, absolute stillness demands no flinching. To keep the stone lowered, to leave the stick in place, and to freeze every muscle. That the creature outside could hear, that heavy pressure costs 4 energy, 6 left but after. Push, only 2 remain. The mental command lands. His arm pauses with the stone. He stands half-lifted, his shoulders softening just a bit as he blends into the trunk. For a second, his breath thins out so much that the system monitor can't even track it. The beast outside lifts its head, listening closely as it freezes. For 10 seconds, the tree holds, his body holds, the shelter holds, and the breath of that unknown creature holds with them. Then a sudden release. The pine mat creaks under a shifting foot, then another. Its heavy breathing moves further away, slower, drifting to the trunk's far side, slower now, past the dry creek bed onto the leaf mat, fading away. Threat past, a deadly predator of the great unknown. He doesn't dare move for a long time after the beast vanishes. His hand stays locked on the cutting stone, his mouth a tense line, each breath in his chest rises in quick, shallow pulses. Exhaustion hits a whole new level. Then his body just gives up. Look at that, completely shutting down. His eyelids drop, not slowly, instantly. A switch was just waiting for a quiet enough moment to finally flip. His shoulders sink back against the rough wood, his right hand still clenched around the walking stick. On the cutting stone, his left hand remains frozen. He slips from awake to deep sleep in one slow breath. The body has chosen, and inside the shelter, the system registers it. The mental connection goes soft around the edges as his senses fade. The readout closes its outer layer, revealing a hidden inner display never seen before. Darker interface screen pops up, showing a single glowing yellow indicator. At the top, the alert reads Nightmare Hollow Access Initialized. A door opens in the back wall. Wait, this definitely wasn't here a minute ago. This opening is the size of a grown man, its frame rough and soft-edged, made of warm material like the other walls but darker. Beyond the frame, a deeper path stretches into the curved hide. The light is dim, with a single path running forward. The ground has the same dark dirt color as the forest outside, but every single grain seems perfectly remembered, slightly out of focus, yet strangely detailed in spots where memory lingered. This is the Nightmare Hollow, a dreamscape. New rules menu opens alongside it, warning that the inner monsters are stronger here but drop superior mental energy. The host cannot wake up until the system exits through the same door. If the dreamer wakes up before then, the shelter won't collapse, but the operator is ejected instantly, losing all dream-acquired energy. If the explorer dies inside, the shelter dies with them. Smaller warning note follows right below it, explaining the dream boundary. It is permeable to host fear. Real-world beasts seen with intense fear can cross over as corrupted nightmare versions without the host's consent. After reviewing the rules, the system checks the reserve bar, currently at 8 after. Regeneration, 3 signals were burned this past hour, creating the map also drained. Massive chunk of energy, but the fear rats have been quiet for 15 minutes because the predator's departure eased his terror. 8 points isn't a lot, but it is enough to start. There are 2 clear choices. First, sit at the threshold and only collect minor surface fragments. Second, step right inside, staying at the threshold. Offers total safety, but misses what is hidden inside, if any threat comes close, the operator won't see it until it's right at the entrance. The wall is thinner near the frame by design, meaning any nightmare creature close by will hear movement. Just breathing, stepping inside means exposure, but it also gives him a shot at a fight whatever is waiting. Besides, the system menu just revealed that the energy yield is higher. Inside, that extra power is literally life or death tonight. A brain shelter that holds, or one that collapses. His companion is out for several hours, pinned down by pure exhaustion. The window of opportunity is wide open. He makes the call, stepping forward toward the frame. The scent of damp leaves and old smoke drifts past him. It feels faint at first, then steadier, no violent yank, just a welcome. Every step forward drains 1/10 of an energy point. As his front foot touches the dusty path inside, his bar has already dropped by half an ounce. Inside the hollow, the air is freezing. Above him, the curved hide ceiling rises far higher than normal, reaching the scale of a real forest canopy, and at the very top, A thin band of dark, false sky pulses. Below him, the dusty path runs. Forward toward shapes he cannot see yet. Trees on either side appear half-formed, soft. At the edges, a creek somewhere ahead rushes with that same low, brown rumble. From outside, to his right, a sound starts. The low banging lifts. It is his first nightmare hound. He raises his thought blade, but that banging noise does not stay alone. Within 3 quick breaths, a second hound answers from his left. After that, a third opens up further out, lurking behind half-formed trees. Then a fourth, lighter, younger-sounding voice joins the chorus from a place he cannot quite locate. 4 beasts are drawing a slow circle around him, a pack closing on prey they already claim. And trust me, the cold inside this place is downright unnatural. It is the wrong kind of cold. Real cold bites his skin, but this sits on his chest. With every single step forward, the oppressive cold forces his breath bar a little lower. His exhale ghosts the air in a pale puff. His mental energy reads 7.5 after the entry pull, far above the dim canopy. That band a false sky pulses once like a heartbeat. The hollow has a heartbeat. Whose heart he does not want to know yet. He presses his back against a half-formed tree, bark crumbling under his shoulder blades. Pieces of bark fall and dissolve before hitting the path. It is just a memory of bark, not real wood, because the host has not looked closely at any single trunk today, except the boar log inside the hollow and the neighboring tree. These trees are placeholders, solid enough to lean on but soft enough to crumble. The first hound emerges from behind the placeholder tree on his right side. Its body is the size of a large dog, covered in wet ash fur. Its eyes hold that same yellow nightmare indicator. The mouth opens, but where sharp teeth should sit, there is only a flickering darkness. Old smoke clings heavily to its breath. He raises his thought blade and steps forward. Instantly, the beast charges across the gap. At the absolute last second, he sidesteps, drops his shoulder, and slides his weapon across the beast's thick shoulder as it hurtles past. That strike lands. The hound skids, its body half tumbling past him into the placeholder undergrowth. A glowing ribbon of pure cold light peels off the wound and sinks into his chest, plus 4 energy points, higher yield just like the system promised. The second beast is already rushing him from the left. He turns into its arc lower than the first, aiming straight for his belly. His blade meets its jaw, driving the cold steel clean up through the skull in a single fluid motion. With a quick strike, the hound dies mid-leap, granting him 3 more energy. The bar's edge has thinned down to a hand's width. His next 2 strikes will drain what remains before the hollow starts taxing every single attack he makes. 2 down, 2 to go. The third hound slows near the placeholder trees, watching. Meanwhile, the fourth beast moves sideways through the undergrowth on a wider circle. It circles wide. These beasts are learning quickly, and so is he. He shifts away from the placeholder tree, backing into the open ground. Out here they cannot blindside him, though he is exposed on all other sides. That is the price, but it is worth it since the hounds are coordinating. Behind him is the only quadrant he cannot easily defend with a quick half-turn. Above him the void pulses again, 2 heartbeats. He has no time to wonder. The third hound rushes him. He takes its head with 1 clean swing. But the momentum throws him off balance, and the fourth beast immediately strikes. Sharp fangs sink into his forearm, sending a freezing chill straight through his bones. His fingers loosen. His weapon almost drops, but he slams his elbow down. He twists, jams a knee into its ribs, and grips his blade once more. He stabs the beast twice, finishing it off, but his wounded arm is screaming. There is no automatic pain suppression for a dreamer in this dark zone. System filters do not apply here, and the freezing numbness only very slowly fades. Standing over the 4 dead beasts, he watches his menu screen update. He gains more energy, bringing his grand total up to 23 points. That is the highest it has been all day. This zone definitely rewards risk. But it demands a heavy price, leaving his arm with a deep, unnatural ache. It is not a muscle ache. Above him, the sky pulses again. 3 quick heartbeats. The rhythm is accelerating. A new system warning suddenly appears. A warning alerts him that he has entered the first tier hollow. The second tier lies further ahead, promising even greater rewards. But danger increases. First-timers should turn back after the first fight. He glances back toward the path he traveled, searching for the exit. The gateway is still visible 70 paces away, looking distant in the gloom. Yet the worn path clearly leads right to that faint, warm rectangle of light. Then he looks ahead. Just 40 paces away, the dark route bends sharply. Past that curve, the trees thicken, hiding a mysterious gold gleam. That glimmering light is the next tier. He currently holds 23 energy. His arm is entirely numb. His sleeping body will remain out for hours. However, the strange sky pulses are starting to disturb his slumber. His exhaustion is draining rapidly because of this bizarre place. If it drops too low, he will wake up instantly, losing everything he gathered. The system strongly advises retreat, so he turns back toward the safe exit. He heads toward the light, but an eerie sound echoes through the trees. It is not coming from the deeper path, but from a different angle. The noise is coming from right between him and his only way back home. He cannot see this new visitor, which is lurking behind a solid trunk. The fact that the tree remains stable means his host has seen it before. A familiar beast or a shape his physical eyes have encountered in the past. To him, this is entirely real, which means the bark holds, and he definitely saw it. He saw it long enough to remember. A heavy sound circles the trunk. The size is massive, far larger than the hound's, with a wide, wet, chilling breath. This steady pattern matches the night creature that crawled on their trunk. Before this, the night hunter never crossed. The gate into his map didn't record a thing, yet this beast has entered. This place, the system updates, tagging a waking monster dragged into. This nightmare hollow fueled by host fear, if the sleeping host's terror was strong enough. During the encounter, the beast crosses the dream gate on its own, pulling itself right through to walk this dirt. Now it blocks his escape route. Outside in the cold, waking forest, the very same beast that had previously wandered off is circling back to the tree. Through a small outer screen, he can still watch the hollow trunk from across his shelter, though the view is dim and distant. Inside, young Taekong sleeps peacefully, clutching a sharp cutting stone with a walking stick laid across his lap. His chest rises slowly, completely overcome by exhaustion. While the nightmare swallows his heartbeat, the beast begins investigating the bark outside. Slow, heavy sniffs. A wet snout presses tightly against the wood, checking if the trunk is hollow. If the beast realizes it is, it will soon find the opening. That entrance faces away from the freezing wind, looking directly toward the dry creek bed where the real hunter emerged. Back inside the dream, he raises his blade to face the terrifying nightmare beast. Outside in the real forest, the predator's snout presses the edge. The dark sky pulses. 4 heartbeats pass. A massive silhouette moves heavily around the tree over damp, muddy ground, closely resembling a terrifyingly small bear, but its gait is completely wrong and the head is shaped incorrectly. That long, narrow head has terrifying eyes, set far wider than its physical skull should ever allow. Its throat is broader than its chest, with heavy shoulders. Its steady walk is what makes it truly terrifying. Monsters that advance without any hesitation fear absolutely nothing. They have never known danger from humans, making them the ultimate and completely unstoppable hunters. Standing with his sharp weapon raised, he directly confronts it. Behind the dark creature, the gate's warm glow is small and dim. If he perishes here, the protection collapses entirely. Once the protective shelter fails, Taekong will wake up completely confused, with the monster nearby. Head with the real predator's snout pressed directly against the tree's dry opening, facing this. Unprepared, holding only a basic club in the dark, will mean absolute and certain death. There is no running from a beast that advances without pausing. It would easily run him down. Those previous hounds only failed because they were reckless. Mindless, but this predator is cunning and patient. He only has 23 energy points left, alongside a completely numb forearm. Fighting those previous hounds cost him high severe damage. This beast is massive, ancient, and highly experienced in tracking. It knows exactly how sweet human prey tastes, and he is currently its next target. The sky pulses again. 5 heartbeats pass, and the nightmare beast lowers its snout, nudging directly into the trunk's dry opening. A slow, hot breath now brushes across the sleeping host's face. His eyelids twitch, but deep fatigue keeps him locked in deep slumber. In the chilling dream world, physical sensation slowly returns to his numb forearm. His grip tightens as he braces himself, raising his blade to chest level. The cold reserve of energy he relied on is finally running low. Just a few moments remain before the well bottoms out. 6 paces away, the beast stops. The weapon in his hand is far too short. The blade feels lighter than it should. Still, this blade is all he has. In this dream, no survival instinct can reach him in time. Outside the dream, no signal matters. The host is trapped in the deepest sleep imaginable. His body is completely unresponsive. Both of them are entirely alone in their own dark corners tonight. The monster takes a single slow step forward, 5 paces now. It locks its eyes onto his. Eyes match the strange band glowing overhead, pupils pulsing to the rhythm of a distant heartbeat. Outside the dream, the predator's thick muzzle slides silently through the entrance of the hollow. Inside, the dream predator opens its massive jaws, releasing a sound that is definitely no growl. Instead, a single spoken word echoes out, one that his host has never even heard before. The beast is not aiming at him, but at the glowing band overhead. Brighter pulses shower down as the word leaves its mouth. 6 heartbeats remain. The dream around the predator starts to thicken, heavy as deep water around a sinking stone. Whatever the creature summoned is answering. The overhead band pulses at 7 heartbeats. He raises his blade. The beast reacts instantly. 4 paces is a gap he cannot close. His weapon cannot reach that far, but those massive jaws can close the distance in one lunge. Outside, the real hunter clears the forest brush, its wet breath hanging heavy in the air. The warm draft brushes past Takum's face, carrying scents of damp wood, moss, and rain. But those smells fade, replaced by the inviting warmth of a deep, defenseless sleep. That human scent is exactly what the real-world predator is tracking right now. Back in the dream, the beast locks its gaze. Honestly, how can he defend both fronts? With his weapon raised to fight, he cannot project his mental shield outward. If he focuses on shielding, the creature will slide right past his defenses. Both worlds are demanding everything he has. Suddenly, the system panel flashes open before him. The top bar tracks the Nightmare Hollow stability, and it is rapidly bleeding into the red. Below that, the brain shelter is sealed, and Host's sleep depth is dangerously low. Host's sleep depth is under threshold, and his mental energy sits at 23 of 64. The screen vanishes. All he has left is a raw memory and a sharp blade. Sever the memory, weaken the threat. That core rule has remained unchanged since his very first hunt. In this place, the battlefield itself belongs to him, if only he can seize control of it. Memory belongs to the host. Nightmares merely borrow it, alter the memory, and the ground shifts. The moment the anchor moves, the floor beneath the predator's feet will crumble. He reaches out. As he touches the phantom bark, the system registers his movement and unlocks a new command. System notification blares memory anchor unlocked, allowing real memories to be pulled in as cover. The cost is 3 mental energy per activation. He quickly targets the clearest memory available. The fallen log, wet bark against Takum's shoulder, and soft footsteps overhead at dawn. The earthy scent of crushed mushrooms beneath his cheek remains perfectly clear. He pulls it forward. Manifesting the memory, a massive wall of bark erupts between him and the oncoming beast. It is not physical wood, but a memory dense enough to physically block a nightmare entity. The predator's front leg, lifting for its next step, hits a barrier it never anticipated. Its front paw lands heavily on a sudden obstacle it never expected to find there. Claws scrape down the thick bark of his host's memory rather than the soft dream soil. The beast slows to a crawl, pupils widening in shock. The overhead band drops suddenly. The timer ticks down from 7 to 6 heartbeats. He strikes while the monster is disoriented. Darting 3 paces along the barricade, he spots the exact seam where dream and memory collide. Before the memories can even finish clashing, he drives his blade right through the chest-high seam. It is a short, light weapon, the very same blade that slipped from the cracks of his shelter wall. Only pure precision can kill a nightmare. He understands this truth deep down. He targets the exact rib where the monster's barbed breath feeds into its lungs. The blade drives forward, sinking deep past imaginary bones. There is no skeleton in this beast. It only has a form because the host believes it does. He cuts through belief, not bone. The predator's silent curse, meant for the defense line above, suddenly dies in its throat. The intense pressure vanishes. Its massive pupil, once matching the barrier, goes cold. The physical form beneath his blade starts to dissolve, folding in on itself before vanishing entirely. His mental energy instantly spikes, climbing from 23 to 31, then shooting up to 44. A high-yield kill, the panel notes it, but he simply cannot stop now. Right at the entrance of the hollow tree, a massive hunter snout sniffs deep inside. A clawed paw begins clawing at the wooden lip. 2 clashing instincts fight inside the beast's mind. Warm scent versus complete stillness, an intense clash inside the beast's primitive mind. The system panel notes that this hunter tracks warm motion by reading heat signatures. He quickly reaches for an unused system capability, and the interface responds immediately. A new notification pops up, sleep pulse unlocked, deepening the host's stillness. It costs 2 mental energy per use. he immediately sends the heavy pulse through the walls. This wave feels far heavier and slower than before, fueled entirely by the host's raw exhaustion. It wraps his exhaustion like a weighted blanket without needing to command him directly. Instead, the sleep pulse convinces Taekyung's body to fall even deeper into unconsciousness. His chest slows, a deeper floor of rest has finally been reached. Every faint breath falls below the threshold that the beast outside could possibly register. Outside, the hunter freezes, its heavy paw slowly lifts off the bark. Its massive nose twitches, pulling back slightly as it waits for any sign of movement. To this beast, movement equals prey. Total stillness simply registers as an inanimate object. It sees only cold stone, dry roots, or remains that some other predator already claimed. The pulse actively masks the heat radiating from the tree hollow, updating his interface. He had no idea this ability could pull body heat inward, a detail now logged. Further away, across the dried-up creek, a massive weight crashes violently through the brush. This is no ordinary wolf monster. It is something far heavier, moving at high speed. It is exactly the kind of loud distraction needed to draw the predator's focus away. He keeps the sleep pulse steady. Only 2 nightmare hounds remain in this dreamscape. They are the smaller pair. Lead and Big Borrower are already gone. As the surviving pair prowls the bark wall searching for a way in, one approaches. The smaller hound draws closer to the hidden gap, but maintaining this tether is exhausting. The pull has remained steady, yet the edges of his system screen are starting to freeze. This cold shift means his control is slipping, making the next move incredibly risky. Directly below him, the smaller hound scrapes its shoulder heavily against the rough bark. But the wood is solid. The host's mourning remains completely intact. Because he survived it, the seal stands. He drops down silently as the beast nears. As the monster's throat aligns perfectly with the hidden gap, he readies his strike. He thrusts his sharp blade straight up into its throat, the source of its power. This is where their pack summons originate. A single clean cut silences the alarm forever. The hound's eyes widen in absolute shock as its front leg buckles under the weight. He slumps against the bark, it holds. Mental energy rises from 44 to 52. A final hound takes one look at the seam and flees into the dream depths. The depths swallow it in 3 paces. The entity's panel stability bar stops bleeding. It stops flashing red. A new alert lands. The secondary dream gate is wide open. Another notification arrives. The thought blade's sharpness rises and the edge in hand. Thins by a finger width as its weight shifts forward, making it feel lighter. The blade is heavier at the point, moving exactly where directed without any hesitation. It strikes perfectly every single time. A third notification suddenly flashes on the screen. Instinct capacity rises, expanding from a single word to 2. Combined urges are active. Option list scrolls past, hide now, still here, and duck low are ready. Overhead bands drop to steady 4 heartbeats. That welcoming warm rectangle widens. The entity turns back along the wooden wall, heading toward that glowing exit. The wall stays close as it moves forward. The numb forearm finally regains feeling. Its grip is dry, and the blade point stays forward without needing any reminder. The entity steps through the glowing rectangle, returning back inside the safe shelter. The shelter wall reads sealed. The cracks stopped earlier are now filling in. They fill slowly from within, like a healing bruise fading back into skin. Behind them, the well sits slightly over half full, and the air has warmed. It is that cozy, comforting warmth that comes when the work is finally winning. But outside the trunk, the terrifying hunter is still lingering right at the entrance. It stops pulling back its snout and begins a second, very deliberate sniff. Oh, thank goodness, that short, clipped sniff means the beast is losing interest. The entity holds the heavy sleep pulse for one more extremely long minute. The hunter pulls back completely, its heavy paw raking the moss before vanishing. The monster's massive body walks away, stepping softly over the dry leaves outside. It slowly heads away from the trunk, toward the dry creek bed. Footsteps fade into a long silence, but the entity keeps the pulse active. The trunk could easily be a trap, with the hunter waiting just outside. It might be expecting the warm scent to move the moment footsteps stop. So the entity keeps Taekyung under a deep, quiet sleep for safety. His breathing is suppressed under the line for the rest of the night. The dark stretches on, maintaining the sleep pulse for what feels like 4 hours. The system readout bar slowly slides toward gray as the night begins to lift. When the dark bands at the top finally thin out, the pulse is released. Taekyung's breathing deepens, his eyelid twitches, the wrapped ankle throbs once and settles. The splint made of sticks and shirt cloth holds firm, his pain subsides. His hand is still tightly gripping the cutting stone, the panel fever warning. Remains the same stable orange as last night, which means he is not getting worse. He finally wakes up, immediately feeling the cold air brushing the trunk entrance. Next comes the damp, earthy smell of moss, followed by the faint morning twilight. It is that quiet light before sunrise, pushing the night off high branches. He takes a slow breath, but no beast returns. The danger is gone. He slowly sits up inside the hollow trunk, testing his sore ankle. It holds his weight nicely. Just then, the walking stick rolls forward. He catches it in time. The entity sends a small, reassuring pulse, still here. His shoulders ease slightly as he waits. The forest only returns. The faint chirping of birds starting high up in the branches, not a full chorus, just a few early songs. A small handful is a clear sign that no dangerous predators are lingering nearby. He edges toward the mouth of the hollow trunk and peers out. The dry creek lies 40 paces ahead. And to his right, 100 paces back to his left, is the log. The predator trail lies past the creek, logged on the map from yesterday. When he spotted tracks near the damp rocks, now he looks south, peering past a low, rolling ridge toward a thick stand of thin, unfamiliar trees. A thin thread of pale smoke drifts steadily up into the morning sky. Smoke. Small, far away, and completely human, his chest tightens with an emotion. That is neither simple dread nor pure hope, but a strange mix of both. He has not encountered another living soul since waking up under that fallen log. The realization of finding someone else hits him faster than his mind can process. The system scans the map. The path to the smoke crosses two dangerous predator trails recorded the day before. One lies right near the dry creek, where a hunter stalked last night. A second run lies further south, narrower, marked only by unidentified animal tracks. Taeyong takes a slow, careful breath at the hollow trunk's exit. His instinct screams to run toward the smoke. The system's programming dictates the exact opposite. It pulls up his vital signs and his fear level registers incredibly low for once. For the first time, he feels no panic, only intense curiosity. But in these woods, curiosity is deadly. The system crafts a sharp, two-word urge, preparing the mental link to be sent. The distant smoke rises. Taeyong raises his foot to take a step forward. Instantly, the system fires the warning to wait first. His foot freezes midair, then lowers back down. His hand grips the walking stick tightly. Those two words worked incredibly well. The system pushes a second. Listen long. He freezes, listening. Wind stirs the high leaves and quickly dies. Under the wind, a soft, wet rustling sound drags across the damp leaves. The predator footprints from last night are very fresh, where there is one. Another monster might easily follow at dawn. He waits 40 silent seconds before he steps out. Once in the open, he avoids the smoke, walking instead exactly where the system directs him. He heads north in the deep shadow, cutting east through dense brush, then south through low ferns hiding his knees. Taking the longer route, 3 sides of a triangle, the system monitors his status panel as he moves. Weak ankle, fever rising to orange. Hunger spiking into high amber. Thirst is stable at low amber, saved by the broadleaf water he drank before leaving. His exhaustion is lower than yesterday because that fitful sleep in the hollow was actually recovery. Something else has shifted in him. His tense posture is relaxing. He scans 10 paces ahead before moving, careful with every single step he takes. Commits 2 rather than just 2. When a dry branch snaps to his left, he turns toward the sound, waits to be sure, and then keeps moving forward. Yesterday he would have frozen for 30 seconds. He is learning fast. But the forest is learning too. A small bird darts across his path. Pure silence. The forest birds are quiet, meaning they do not register him as a predator. He finally smells like the forest he is moving through, sweat and crushed ferns. Meanwhile, the system's map display tracks their progress in the background. Smoke is rising from a small clearing just south-southwest. 3 new hazard coordinates pop up on the radar as they move forward. A sharp thorn cluster, freshly upturned dirt under a tilted tree, and a dry hollow in the earth that is easily big enough to hide an entire grown man. The old markers stay locked. Suddenly, 2 predator trails appear. They cut across the path, showing some incredibly wide tracks. These prints are from a couple of nights ago, definitely not from this morning. They step right over the trail, where it winds around a massive stone outcrop. With the path finally behind him, the rising smoke is now very close ahead. Only 100 paces, Taekong freezes, his ear catching a faint, unexplained rustling. No voices, no movement, just a slow, wet drip on dry leaves. He crouches behind a low fern to peer ahead. A small clearing opens. In the center, a circle of river stones surrounds a pile of pale ash. A wooden spit rests on two sturdy, forked sticks driven into the dirt. On the spit, a thick, tempting chunk of fresh meat has been propped up. It is only half-cooked, seared outside but blood-red on the inside. The fire died down about an hour ago, which is why thin smoke still rises. The abandoned camp is completely quiet. A traveler's pack lies wide open. A blanket is spread over some oilcloth near a small pot. An open, half-full waterskin rests nearby, pointing straight up at the sky. A tiny piece of flint lies forgotten in the ashes, but look just beyond the camp. On the far side of a tilted tree, there is a prominent, dark smear. It stains a green leaf that has not even fully dried yet. Taekong traces the dark stain, dragging several inches up the rough tree bark. It suddenly stops. The mark is clearly the shape of a hand dragged along the wood. No one is here. The entire camp is completely deserted, with absolutely nobody waiting. Everything was left behind. The owner fled in a massive hurry without packed gear. They abandoned everything. Honestly, this is starting to look like a complete nightmare. Taekong takes a slow breath, while the system monitors his vital levels closely. His fear is not rising yet. He simply does not understand the danger. Instead, hunger is taking over. It completely overrides his survival instincts. His growling stomach drags his eyes straight back to the fresh meat. Inside his mind, a thick gray fog of hunger starts creeping in. It clouds his judgment, whispering that just a tiny bite is fine. But the system instantly slices through this illusion, completely clearing his head. The heavy mental fog disperses, letting him see the camp for what it is. Taekong pauses. His hand, which had been reaching out, slowly drops back down. He blinks, snapping out of it, and shifts his focus back to the camp. The host's status panel flashes open, displaying a bright warning in amber right before him. It reads "contaminated" in plain text. That single word is enough. He immediately recoils. A sickening, sour stench cuts right through the cooked meat. Did the previous owner get poisoned here? Whether the cook did it, the spit was poisoned, or some other threat lurked. Something had been roaming this clearing, spreading a slow, silent contamination. Over everything it found, it is impossible to tell from here. Taekong leaves the meat. Right on the spit, he waits behind the fern for another count of 40. Nothing moves. Round the campsite, no humans return. Not even a small animal arrives to claim the leftovers. The wind shifts, thinning the smoke thread to almost nothing. He quietly moves into the camp opposite the bloody tree bark, lifting a sharp flint sliver out of the ashes before slipping it into his torn shirt pocket. The pack against the leaning tree is empty, except for a small leather pouch tucked in the corner. 2 strips of clean, dry meat and a tiny pinch of salt rest at the bottom. He pockets the pouch and turns toward the fire ring. Far down the trail behind them, a single dry leaf snaps in the wind. That is not the herder, nor last night's hunter from the dry creek bed. This is something new, with a step the map does not recognize. Taekong freezes right at the edge of the ring. He stops breathing, clutching the broken stick. A long moment passes, but the cracking sound does not repeat. The wind takes the silence and rolls it through the brush. He breathes again, slow, and the map's outer edge stays clear of any red dots, but that empty space somehow feels far thinner than it should. After that warning, he works much faster. The embers beneath the gray ash still hold 3 glowing spots. He quickly feeds them wood shavings from a dry branch until a thin orange flame creeps up the fresh fuel, creating a small, live fire. On its spit, the poisoned meat remains untouched. He cuts a bitter root from the leaning tree. At the edge of the clearing, peeling the outer bark into thin strips, he places them across the new flame on a fresh stick, releasing a clean, earthy scent directly off the cooking bark. 5 strips eaten slowly, 3 saved for the journey back. Inside the shelter, his hunger level finally drops a bit. A small column of starlight spills across the wall, while the room's energy levels climb a steady pair of ticks into the room he has grown. A sharp focus remains locked on the dark smear across the bark. That mark is definitely not from an animal. The angle of the smear shows the hand print was dragged instead of pushed. Someone was pulled from this side of the tree deep into the thick brush, meaning whatever took them is much larger than A human, no one should stay inside this clearing past dusk, the fading light. Shifts as he eats, the shadow of the leaning tree stretches past the fire. Ring afternoon fades toward evening and Tai Kai packs. He takes the dry meat. Strips the sharp flint sliver, the pinch of salt, and the small leather pouch. The cooked bark, the broken stick he arrived with, the dead spit, and the poisoned meat are left exactly where they lay, whatever follows that scent. Into the clearing tonight will find it here, not on his trail. He moves to the opposite edge of the clearing, then suddenly stops. On the map, a new yellow dot appears. Near the outer boundary, circling slowly and closing in from the windy side. Faint, oily warmth carries on the wind before any actual sound arrives. The scent of a body that has run hard through thick summer brush drifts over. Then a sound enters. The clearing from the brush behind the leaning tree, soft footsteps on dry leaves, a light padding. Much lighter than last night's hunter, breath alternating wet and quiet, but not the same. Rhythm. Tai Kyong steps backward into the deep shadow. The sound circles the leaning tree once before entering the open space, and a long body steps out from the something rustles in the dim light by the fire. A lean, low-shouldered wolf with yellow eyes emerges. Its thin summer coat clings to its ribs. This is not the same beast from last night. It is smaller but built for speed, a true night wolf. It looks toward the roasting meat. But it does not eat. Its nose sniffs the meat twice, then quickly pulls back. It reacts the exact same way Tai Yong did to the toxic, black-spotted stench. The beast knows the food is poisoned. Meat is not what brought it here. Instead, it is hunting for whatever else might be hiding in this dark clearing. Cold yellow eyes shift from the spit, locking onto Tai Yong hiding in the shadows. High up in the shelter, a strange new status bar begins to glow on the panel. It is a faint, unlabeled option that has never appeared on the screen before. A locked feature waiting for a level yet to be reached. Tai Yong grips his club. With the freshly lit fire warming his back, he prepares himself for a brutal clash. The heavy iron spit lies 2 paces to his right. 6 paces ahead, the predator waits. He has to choose right now, grab the iron bar or run. The system calculates with him. But the wolf does not attack. A hungry beast would have lunged already. This one is full. It has already eaten whatever that poison bait was meant to protect. Now it is just cutting through this camp, traversing its own claimed territory. To the wolf, the warm body standing in its path is a minor inconvenience. A problem it intends to solve right here. The beast begins to pace sideways. Its paw presses into the campfire ash and lifts away. Inside the interface, panic rises. Pale, writhing panic worms wake up, twisting rapidly from the bottom of the screen. They crawl upward, heading straight for Tikung's knees to paralyze his movement. If they reach his joints, his legs will lock up completely in sheer terror. He will turn to stone, left completely defenseless when the predator finally strikes. The system knows this danger, but destroying the source of panic entirely is not the answer. Erasing all fear from a man facing a deadly wolf would only make him reckless. A fearless man would walk straight to his death and get his throat ripped out. Fear is necessary, but paralysis is fatal. The system blade slices the climbing worms. The blade cuts flatly through the lower bodies of the writhing parasites. Severed mid-climb, the worms slide back down, unable to reach his knees. Tikung feels the panic, but his body is not paralyzed. His heart races as his hand squeezes the broken wooden club with raw intensity. Free to act, he takes 2 careful steps sideways toward the burning fire ring. The wolf tracks him with its head, its heavy body lagging slightly behind. That split-second delay gives him a brief moment to react. He seizes the chance. Reaching directly into the crackling fire, his hand grabs a backup branch. His fingers wrap tightly around the cool, unburned end of the thick wood. He pulls it from the embers, the tip now glowing with a bright orange light. Thrusting the blazing torch forward, he takes a decisive step toward the iron spit. The wolf immediately flattens its ears, a clear sign that it is hesitating. Predators respect fire. A man without flames is just an easy target. But a man armed with fire becomes something else entirely, a force to be feared. That primal flame is an ancient enemy, far older than the beast itself. The blue panel on the interface glows deep at the center and fades at the edges. That fading light indicates there is still time for a few more vital boosts. The system urges Tai Yong to slow down, forcing him to duck low as his head and shoulders drop a handspan just as the wolf lunges. It had already committed to the attack. A heartbeat before the guide's command landed, what should have closed at his throat. Snaps shut on the empty air above his head. All the beasts wait. flies past him. As it does, Tai Yong swings the burning club, not at the head, no. Not at the ribs either. The glowing orange end strikes the wolf's rear thigh mid-jump. And the searing heat jerks the beast's spine sideways. Its landing goes completely wrong. Its front paws land while the back paws drag. The wolf spins, knowing it is in a fight. Its yellow eye locks onto Tai Yong, baring its sharp teeth, its thin summer coat is loose over its ribs. It is older than the guide first realized, and older wolves are smarter. The guide pulls up the mental energy panel, noting their reserves have dropped past the first quarter, with each command taxing the host's energy more than the last. An unlabeled bar on the interface glows brighter now, somewhere above the screen. The system is tracking the battle and deciding whether to unlock a new tool. Tai Yong backs toward the spit, keeping his right hand on the burning club. With his left hand, he reaches for the spit's iron bar. He feels the warmth of the metal through his palm, warm as ash, not coal hot, and pulls. Bar free, roasted meat slides off the wooden forks into the ash as the metal comes loose. It is as long as his forearm and surprisingly heavy, blunt but straight and solid. He has two weapons now. The wolf circles, limping on its injured rear leg as it moves. The guide knows they have a speed advantage, but no real safety. An old, three-legged wolf is still incredibly fast across 6 paces compared to a man with a wrapped ankle. Inside his mind, panic worms push higher up the walls. The guide cuts their legs down with swift, flat strokes at the lower thirds. Each strike costs energy, but it keeps Tai Yong's knees free without burning his mind completely out. The boy's body desperately needs an opening, but the wolf is not giving. One. Tai Yong's eyes flick across the beast but find no clean angle. Its head keeps moving, its throat guarded. A sharp blade might split those ribs, but this bar is blunt. The guide pours power into the iron bar to sharpen its edge, burning the mental cost. Their energy drops by 4 points. The tip of the bar thins down, whatever the guide sharpens, Tai Yong's hands can use. The wolf circles for a third time. A clear pattern emerges in the guide's view. Every circle has been clockwise, meaning the beast naturally leads with its right shoulder. That movement leaves its left eye completely exposed for a split second at the apex. The guide cannot simply explain this tactic to Tai Yong. The connection is too limited. Instead, the guide must cut a panic worm at the exact moment the beast reaches the apex, which will jolt the host's hand into motion at the perfect moment for a counter. The wolf rounds toward the apex. Its clockwise pivot puts the right shoulder forward. Its left eye is exposed. The guide cuts the panic worm hard. Tai Yong's right arm jerks in response. The burning club crosses the gap toward the wolf. Before the beast can even finish its half step of the pivot, the glowing orange tip strikes the left eye dead center. There is no give. The wood drives the burning tip straight through the eye, stopping only at the bone behind it. A high, broken shriek of pure agony erupts as the wolf jerks its head free of the club. The orange glow dies out instantly, extinguished by the wet eye as the singed wood snaps off. A heavy club smears across the wolf's face as it retreats, taking 3 rapid steps away. Its injured rear leg drags on that third step as it halts near the edge. The beast glares back with its one remaining eye before turning to limp into the brush. The thick foliage swallows it up. Silence returns to the clearing. Tai Kang's chest heaves. Sweat drips down his temple. Fortunately, his wrapped ankle holds as the flame flickers. Tiny flames slowly consume the fresh wood. Tai Kang remains absolutely still for 20 seconds. The system does not lift the strike against the creature's legs. Tai Kang needs to stay alert. He must be absolutely sure the beast is too far away to launch a sudden return. After 20 quiet seconds with no sound from the woods, Tai Kang finally kneels in the ash. He pulls the flint sliver from his pocket, tucking it securely deep into the seam. Next, he lifts the iron spit, wrapping its warm end with a strip of torn shirt. He pulls a remaining piece of cooked bark from his pouch, preparing to eat. He chews it slowly, letting the starch calm his trembling hands while the system scans. The energy well is down to a third, drained heavily by that exhausting battle. Recovery will take some time. Meanwhile, the mental shield is holding up quite well. The brain shelter is completely sealed, and the inner fractures are steadily repairing themselves. Tai Kang's fear levels are dropping, and his physical pain is minor and manageable. His hunger is subsiding with the bark, and his ankle support remains stable. A new alert flashes at the bottom. Focus Spear is officially unlocked. It costs 6 mental energy points per use and requires direct line of sight. Maximum capacity rises from 64 to 72. The struggle taught the system a valuable lesson. The system interface always teaches this way, withholding upgrades until the danger passes. In the next encounter, the system will not need to manual cast to land a hit. Their current inventory is meager: the iron spit, a flint sliver, and a small pouch. Inside the pouch lie 2 strips of dried meat, salt, and 3 pieces of bark. They also have a cutting stone and a charred wooden club. Along with a walking stick and the tattered shirt, outside the forest remains hostile. Somewhere in the woods, a crippled, half-blind wolf is limping away on 3 legs. Suddenly, a fresh warning flashes on the display. The minimap has updated. Right where the wolf vanished, a small red indicator pops up on the screen. Wait, that is not the wolf. Its marker is actually dimming as it retreats. Instead, a much brighter, completely stationary dot appears right above the first one. This threat lingers at the edge of a pit, on the side Tai Kang has not noticed yet. The system had cataloged this pit earlier when he knelt behind the ferns. Back then, it seemed like a harmless, normal depression near the leaning tree. The system ignored it initially, but now a massive danger flag is raised. From the darkness of the pit, a deep, rumbling growl suddenly echoes. The hidden beast does not approach, it just lets out a warning vibration. That is definitely not a wolf. It is far bigger, slower, and incredibly patient. It was smart enough to let the wolf test Tai Kang's strength first. The wolf was never the real hunter here, it was merely the sentry. Tai Kang's eyes narrow. He stares toward the pit. From his angle, the ground looks entirely unnatural. The edges are far too straight, with soil pushed up in parallel lines. They look exactly like the drag marks of a heavy body crawling out of the earth. The surrounding leaves are flattened in wide arcs, suggesting a chest far broader than any wolf. Inside the shelter, a new panel pops up. A dungeon hollow is detected. Dual clear is required. The inner and outer areas must finish together. This pit is no ordinary hole. He reads the urgent message on the glowing screen. The display remains frozen. The system has linked the outer pit directly with it. New hollow inside the shelter, right where the back wall meets the floor. On his map, a bright pulsing dot throbs once every 2 breaths. Perfectly matching the rhythm inside, he takes the interior while Tai Kang stays. At the outer rim, for the first time, their paths must completely split. Tai Kang cannot assist him inside, and the outside is far beyond his reach. He cannot even throw a spear to help. Whatever crawls out of that pit must face Tai Kang's iron bar and burning club alone, without any backup. On his side, his blade must meet whatever climbs out of the dark. Tai Kang cannot help him here. His energy well is just over half full. But he feels a deeper reservoir of power than he had yesterday. He steps forward, descending into the fresh gap, opening at the back of the shelter. It leads down into a small clay chamber, far different from the bone walls. Of the nightmare hollows, this thick clay still holds the shape of a hand. Pressed against it, it is soil that remembers being touched by human hands. A single chest rests quietly in the dead center of the clay room. It is small, with a lid that triggers a memory he cannot quite place. Sprouting all around the chest is a thick ring of dangerous rage thorns. Each spike is as long as his forearm and dark as dried blood. Scurrying between them, fear rats sprint in rapid figure eights. His energy drops. He is down to 40 of 72 points. Talk about a tight spot. Each thorn is anchored deep. Slicing off the tips will do absolutely nothing. They will simply grow right back from their base within 2 seconds flat. Cutting them in half is useless too. They knit together instantly. They heal faster than he can swing his sword. He must target the anchors. That is the only part feeding directly on the raw dungeon structure itself. From where he stands, he can see 3 distinct anchors. He inspects them. One anchor is buried half deep in the clay to the south. Its massive thorn leans far outward. The second anchor lies to the east. Holding a spike that bends inward directly over the chest, the final anchor sits at the north, fully exposed, with a much shorter, thicker spike. 3 clean cuts will break the ring. The running rats are just a distraction. They want to draw his eyes away, but they are not the real threat. As long as they stay off his legs, they are harmless. He approaches the south anchor. One rodent breaks its pattern and lunges straight for his shin. He shifts weight, stepping aside to let the beast pass harmlessly beneath his raised foot. It skids across the floor. Without turning back, he focuses on the southern thorn. Leaning directly over his path, ducking low, he locates the root-like base anchor. It curves like an ancient, gnarled root. He presses his blade into the curl and twists it a quarter turn. The anchor snaps and the whole thorn topples over and lies motionless. The clay stops leaking its foul gray mist. Only 2 anchors remain. He prepares to cross over to the next one. Moving inside the east anchor, 3 rats now trail behind in a loose formation. The lead rodent is already running figure 8s right within his immediate reach. He slides his blade across the lead rat's path, forcing it toward a thorn. The thorn does not budge. A sharp squeal erupts as the rat turns and flees. The east anchor is much tougher. Its thorn curves inward, hanging directly over the chest. Cutting this anchor means the thorn will drop straight onto the lid of the chest. If it falls there, opening the chest becomes impossible without lifting it first. So he bypasses the east anchor for now, moving over to target the north. The north anchor sits exposed near the clay rim, sporting a short, thick thorn. He wedges his blade beneath the exposed root and pries it straight upward. The anchor lifts cleanly from the clay, pulling a long, pale fiber with it. The thorn tumbles outward, away from the chest. Now it is time for the east. Returning to the east anchor, he jams his blade into the narrow curl and twists. The east anchor snaps, falling inward toward the chest exactly as he expected. As it lands across the center, he lifts the fallen thorn away. It is dead and heavy now, lacking the natural flex of a living thorn. He sets the dead weight aside. The panicked rats have stopped their frantic looping. They sit quietly at the outer edge of the ring, watching closely. Staring at the chest in him, trying to decide whether to attack or run. The well drains past the midpoint, and the surrounding air grows colder. Meanwhile, over at the pit, Taekong has already begun his slow climb down. Taekong made this choice on his own, driven by the dungeon's strange pull. The system map shows Taekong balanced at the rim, gripping a thick, exposed root. He stretches his good foot down, searching for the first rocky ledge below. Our protagonist reads the slope directly through Taekong's eyes, mapping the wider bottom below. The space opens up down there, revealing a floor of dry clay. At the center of the floor, various discarded items have been swept against the walls. These relics were cast aside by whatever used this place as a stash. There is coiled hemp rope and a cracked clay pot lying on its side. A bone needle rests nearby, neatly threaded through a badly frayed strap. And 3 dry mushrooms lie in a heap, previously marked on the map. He continues his slow descent, his injured ankle managing the angled slope. He grips his trusty walking stick tightly in his right hand as he moves. His burning club hangs from his shirt, while an iron bar is wedged behind. With his weapons secured, Taekong finally sets foot onto the dry clay floor below. Taekong turns his head to scan the far wall, but it is swallowed by shadows. Now watch closely as he splits his focus. The chest is finally opened. Inside, a shimmering memory sits suspended in the air, a shape lingering like a phantom. It lingers in the chamber, much like a fresh handprint pressed into wet clay. As he observes it, the shape resolves into a familiar piece of terrain. A memory Taekong has carried within himself since the very first morning. A low slope he once raced down on a bicycle during his childhood. It was winter with a friend, and now this slope registers on the map. A new tab blinks open in the corner of the map, marking the safe mushrooms. Inside the pit, those 3 dry mushrooms flicker with a soft green light. Green is officially safe. The map links the mushroom to this color. Now next time he sees this shape, his eyes will know, instantly. Safe, he knows it. A new tab pops open at the edge. Instinct signals just got an upgrade, unlocking directional urges. Left, right, up, down, all directions are ready. Down below, the fear rats back off. They bow their heads as the dungeon registers the chest as fully opened. These beasts are no longer a threat. Wherever the dungeon sends them, they will go. They vanish outside the shelter, scattering deep into the host's vast, chaotic mind. There is other work for them out there. Meanwhile, the entity exits the hollow. The secret passage seals shut right behind him, leaving no trace on the stone. This system's power well is running low, meaning the next move relies on absolute calm. Thankfully, those jagged internal cracks are slowly starting to mend themselves. Over at the pit, Taekong is packing up. He slings the thick hemp rope over his shoulder. He tucks the cracked clay pot under his arm and grabs the sharp bone needle. After pocketing the frayed strap, he kneels down beside the 3 dried mushrooms. He picks one up, turning it over as his eyes register that glowing green safe sign. All 3 are pocketed. Honestly, watching him handle these new features is incredibly satisfying. Up, his head immediately tilts toward the high rim, listening intently for any danger. He scans the edge for any giant silhouette lurking above. Nothing there. The terrifying growl has not returned since the wolf retreated. The beast is gone. Those claw marks at the rim are empty, at least for now. He begins to climb. This steep slope is surprisingly easy on his bad ankle this time around. His feet naturally find the ledges he mapped out during his descent. He pulls himself up. He scrambles over the edge, fully loaded with the rope, pot, and mushrooms. All his gear is secure, including the iron bar tucked into his belt. He carries the burning club, the sharp cutting stone, and his trusty walking stick. Returning to the fire ring, he sets the cracked but usable clay pot on a flat stone. He carefully pours some water from the skin he scavenged at the abandoned camp. The precious broadleaf water fills the container, ready for the next crucial step. He coaxes the flames right under the pot, and the water begins to ripple. In a wild forest, boiling water is the difference between living and dying. He waits. Once it reaches a rolling boil, he drops the dried mushrooms inside. Steam billows up as the wild mushrooms slowly begin to swell in the heat. After a mental count of 200, he fishes them out onto a warm rock. The hot stone dries them incredibly quickly, keeping them preserved for later. A quick status check shows hunger and fever levels are completely stable for now. His thirst level is finally improving after taking a cautious sip of warm water. With his ankle holding up, his growing calm feeds directly into the system. The mental reservoir is slowly recharging, creeping up tick by tick. While the food dries, he keeps busy. He drives the iron bar deep into the dirt. Then he tightly binds a sharpened wooden branch alongside the heavy metal bar. Using leftover pieces of hemp rope, he secures the deadly pointed tip he carved earlier. Now he has a makeshift spear, and seriously, this thing looks incredibly lethal. The wooden branch acts as the piercing tip of this brutal new weapon. He rests the heavy spear across his lap, taking a long, much-needed breath. The map updates. Where the wolf vanished, its dim dot has gone out completely. Deep in the brush where the beast went, a new red dot suddenly appears. It is moving away from the wolf's path, heading straight toward the camp. A distance line writes itself on the map, 800 paces. The new dot is bigger. It is far larger than the dead runner's dot. The observer does not look away. Across the clearing, the wind shifts, bringing an unfamiliar scent he cannot identify. It is not a deer or a wolf, nor does it match last night's hunter. Something entirely new is coming. At 800 paces, the red dot closes in. He pushes his consciousness into the map, and the system answers his call. Whatever carries that dot is much faster than the dead runner, moving straight ahead. Yesterday's hunter ran in a curve, but this new threat takes a direct route. It stalked the slopes before attacking. This new shape comes in a straight line. The well is thinning at the bottom, and the protective shelter wall reads as weak. It is sealed but dangerously thin. He has 8 new memory chain pins to use. Pinning all 8 to one spot means the herder could easily circle around them. It leaves other areas completely exposed, but saving 6 pins gives him more flexibility. He decides to place 4, then sends a silent mental urge to move. Guiding him east, Take Young suddenly lifts his head from the cold fire ring. His good ear turns toward the brush past the ruined camp. The shifting wind carries no words, but a strange pressure builds behind his eyes. It warns him that the air is wrong. His hand grips the rough spear. He immediately starts to pack, holding his rough wooden spear upright in his hand. He tips the cracked clay pot, pouring some hot water onto the dry dirt. He lightens his load for travel, while keeping enough to drink along the way. A folded strip of bark patches the pot, and hemp rope slings across his chest. A bone needle and frayed strap tuck neatly into his small shirt pocket. 3 dry mushrooms and a sharp flint sliver ride in the folds of his belt. A heavy iron bar remains secured at his hip, exactly where it has always been. He quickly snuffs out his burning club because a lit torch would give him away. It would leave a scent trail for whatever is hunting him. He buries the embers. The sparks die. He moves out, taking his first 10 steps on his wrapped ankle. The tight wrapping holds, but the sharp pain of his old sprain flares up. On the 11th step, he leans his weight onto the sturdy wooden walking stick. Distance writes itself on the map as he walks, passing an old predator trail nearby. The map highlights the threat in orange, and he carefully steps wide of it. Inside the shelter, the observer matches his pace. This exact synchronization is vital. While the man walks on an injured ankle, the observer cannot rush ahead. Running inside only wastes mental energy. He moves precisely at the traveler's slow speed. Whispering fear, rats begin creeping back around the cold edges of the shelter. They are smaller than before, but these pests are the stubborn, long-term residents. They infest the seams of the bark, never truly leaving the dark corners. They alertly lift their heads as the glowing red dot outside draws closer. Their hungry eyes fixate on him, but his focus must remain on the wall. He firmly holds the line, a sharp thought blade resting across his forearm. If a rat dares to lunge, the deadly edge will strike them down instantly. Against the wall, none lunge yet. They wait at the seam, 500 paces away. Taejong crosses a thin strip of open ground between the camp and the eastern rise. That open ground is the worst kind to cross. His pace quickens, his bad ankle holding tight. As his walking stick takes long steps, he reaches the first slope of the rise, and the climb relieves his ankle, since going uphill works the calf instead. Of that bad joint, the minimap ticks with new locations as he registers. Them a bent sapling to his left, bowed from a deer rubbing its shoulder. Smooth stone polished by ancient water, and a low gap in the brush to his right. That could fit a crouched body. He marks every detail on the map without slowing. The system nudges him left. The map shows a denser stand. To the left of the rise, thicker cover is better cover. He shifts his line left. Disappearing into the brush. Inside their shelter, the giant rats stand tall on their hind legs. 3 of them now have their full attention locked on him, their bodies angle toward the seam, ready to make their next move. But his weapon's edge rises and strikes before the lead rat can even leap. The blade catches it clean across the chest, sending it crashing back down in silence. The other 2 freeze at that exact moment. A brief pause is a massive gain. The system draws from Taejong's small reservoir of calm, but his composure is paper-thin because his body knows something is wrong. The gauge rises by 3, going from 28 to 31. Suddenly the wind shifts and shifts again in the worst direction. In that second shift, it is clear that the 4 anchored system tracking pins read the eastern brush behind them as safe, while the herder is scanning the brush in front of them. The wind brings exactly what that beast is sensing: Taejong's warm blood from his wrapped ankle, the bitter smell of potato smoke on his shirt, and the salt of his sweat. It was tracking him for 100 paces before the system even realized. Suddenly, the map updates again. An old predator trail at the bottom of the rise has been crossed by a new red dot that is moving without hesitation. This new shape does not see the old trail as a threat. Either it knows yesterday's hunter is gone, or it simply eats whatever made those tracks. Either way, things look incredibly bad. 200 paces. Through the brush, a sound echoes that doesn't match yesterday's runner's gait. That runner had a steady, rolling stride, but this new threat has a calculated pause between its second and third steps, a slow, chilling hesitation that means this monster is carefully scanning the ground for fresh tracks before taking its next steps. A tracking hunter is far worse than a charging beast because a tracker can be patient. 200 paces left. Taejong reaches the top of the ridge. A narrow spine of high ground runs east, dropping sharply on the far side into a dry creek bed. Loose stones cover the steep slope of the drop, leading to a pale strip of sand. Ancient, twisted roots stick out. Out from the steep cut face of the drop, he pauses at the edge, staring down. Climbing down with a freshly wrapped, injured ankle is incredibly risky. The slope has loose stones at its top half. The lower half has solid roots to hold onto. A healthy man could easily pick a line and descend in 40 seconds, but with his injury, Taejong will need much longer, forcing him to expose his back to the rise for far too long. But staying up here means facing the threat. Suddenly, Ju-won pings the panel. He does not have the energy for another nightmare-grade fight. His mental defenses are gone. The barrier is sealed but fragile. One fight will shatter it. Taejong lowers his body, freezing in place. He crouches low at the edge of the ridge, keeping his injured ankle below the loose gravel. A crude spear rests across his thigh, its tip pointing back along his path. He lets out a slow, steady breath as the mountain wind shifts once again. The scent grows stronger, carrying a metallic note that triggers a warning on the map. It is old, dried blood, carried by a moving threat. As the creature moves, the system map flashes with a second marker. An orange threat, carrying blood at 30 paces. Taejong grips his spear. He peers through the low brush, trying to make out shapes in the distance. At this range, foreign shapes easily break the vertical lines of the brush. A tree trunk breaks the view cleanly, but a living body leaves a softer curve. The system quietly monitors his status panel without losing sight of the treeline. His hunger is amber, the fever holds at orange, and his thirst is dropping. Boiled water from the camp helps, but his mental well takes a hit from fear. The psychological barrier thins by a hair, but it remains sealed for the moments that matter. Down at the foot of the rise, a soft curve moves through the thick brush. Its shoulders rise higher than yesterday's hunter, narrower than a wild boar. The creature stands far too upright for something moving on four legs. The surrounding foliage does not bend cleanly against its body, snagging on something rough and jagged. Something sharp or jagged on its sides keeps catching on the leaves. Through Tijayang's eyes, the creature's true color remains hidden behind the dense leaves. The forest is simply too thick, but his ears catch a faint sound. A soft, careful step, followed by another. The system prepares the thought blade. The mental blade is raised, bracing against the thinnest part of the barrier. And look at that, the red dot on the map completely stops moving. It sits 30 paces behind him on his path. The wind shifts again. A long shadow creeps over the dry leaves, narrower than a wolf's head. Its shoulders loom unnervingly high, far stranger than any beast he has faced. The terrifying shape does not move forward, nor does it retreat. The shadow lingers at the ridge beside him, while the system's energy thins. Just a few more efforts will completely empty it, leaving him entirely exposed. His defenses are completely out of alignment, and the barrier is wearing dangerously thin. Tijayang holds his breath mid-inhale, while the system readies the mental blade. The shadow's edge grows sharp. The beast is now incredibly close. Bright sunlight slices through the thick brush, revealing a massive, muscular shoulder. Next comes a long lower jaw and a clawed limb resting on the dry leaves. Its razor-sharp claws are far larger than any hunter beast he has encountered before. The map updates an unknown predator is holding at 28 paces, right behind him. Talk about an absolute nightmare. He is forced to keep his back turned. The creature does not move, and Tijayang keeps his breath trapped in his chest. Even a tiny shoulder movement right now would signal his presence to the predator. At 30 paces, the beast is waiting intently for any subtle sign of life. It wants a moving target to chase, a desperate choice to exploit. But absolute stillness turns him into a stone, blending into the mountain. The system sends a quiet reassurance through his tensed muscles, still here. Right where his shoulder meets his neck, the muscle holds, his ankle registers tight. His grip on the spear is locked, his chest remains completely still as the well drains. Maintaining this two-word hold costs power, dropping the energy bar a notch lower. The shadow doesn't advance. The system keeps its thought blade raised, watching the seam. Right at the back of the shelter, a fear rat sniffs the seam. The blade drops. It strikes the tip of its head, killing it instantly. The wall is officially sealed. The energy well ticks down slightly. Outside, a heavy claw presses into the damp leaves. It drags backward, using touch to sense the area. Leaves near his boot shift. They rustle once and go quiet. The predator places its longest finger on the ground. It's testing the surface tension of the soil, but the leaves under Taikang's feet don't budge. The claw lifts. Wet leaves settle back down without a sound. The creature carries its weight cleanly, showing years of silent practice. A new trajectory appears. The system's memory map plots a third line near the red dot. An unknown orange blood signature appears. The interface matches a partial pattern. This means the system database contains a tiny fragment of a similar beast. A remnant from somewhere it has visited before. The system logs a new detail. It labels the target as a herder, and herding is very different from hunting. These beasts drive their prey directly toward a prearranged kill zone instead of attacking immediately. They steer you along a specific path, guiding you right into the waiting trap. A second mouth waits at the end, an unnamed swarm that does all the dirty work. Taikang remains frozen right at the edge of the ridge. The system keeps him still. Even a slight turn of his head would signal to the monster that its trap is blown. Once a herder knows it is spotted, it stops playing games and goes straight for the kill. Herding only works on unsuspecting prey. Suddenly, the massive claw moves once more. This time it rests on a leaf right beside his boot, a line of dry foliage. Stretching toward the dry creek bed begins to rustle in a slow, unnatural wave. The vibration acts like a finger tapping, pointing directly toward the lower slope. The herder is actively guiding Taikang. Go down the slope, the signal suggests, but the system refuses to take the bait. Descending now would mean walking directly into their designated trap. That path ends in the jaws of the swarm. The system locks Taikang in place. He remains in a low crouch, letting the wave of leaves settle without a response. The dark shadow near his foot twitches. The beast is waiting to see if he moves. The controller's energy reserves are running dangerously low, and maintaining this standoff is costly. A subtle tremor ripples across the status panel. Suddenly, a second shadow emerges on the ridge. It creeps up just behind the main herder. It is tiny, barely the length of a single human finger. Soon, a third and fourth join, scurrying low to the ground. They have razor-thin bodies and folded wings tucked tightly against their backs. They glide forward like a liquid wave, heading north along the edge of the ridge. They bypass Tiyoung's hiding spot entirely. The blade insects stream past without touching. The massive herder, finally its claw lifts off the leaves, taking 2 soft steps back. The heavy footsteps fade from the ridge. The third stride is much wider, indicating creature that has finished its task and is now moving on to another path. The looming shadow at his feet finally dissolves as the beast retreats into the brush. The wind shifts, the metallic scent of blood fades away, and the map's red dot tracks north along the ridge, following the insects. He waits for a long, quiet count. At 15, the dot drops behind the ridge, and the orange ring completely vanishes from the map. The herder is gone, taking the blade insect flow with it. It had been tracking Tiyoung's heat signature at the edge of the ridge since the wind first shifted. That was the exact danger the map's moving red zone had warned about since last night. Staying absolutely still saved his life, without those blade insects crossing the beast's path at the perfect moment to distract it. The predator would have taken another slow step forward, and then another, until its claws reached his boots. The insects weren't its target. Tiyoung was. Without that distraction, the beast would have cornered him on the very next step. Tiyoung finally lets his breath out. His shoulders sag slightly. His grip on the spear loosens just enough to reveal his racing but steady pulse. He might not understand what just happened in words, but his body feels it. He instinctively knows the deadly predator has finally left. A new notification pops up on the map. The system has analyzed the encounter and recorded the lesson, unlocking a new map feature. Now, wherever a threat has appeared, the system will highlight the area in a soft orange glow without needing to detect it again. Ancient predator trails, old spoiled food, and contaminated water will all automatically flag themselves. On his screen, the panel closes. This wasn't a fight or a kill, just a brutal waiting game. It cost him 4 mental energy and a fear rat, but it secured him a ridge free of monsters. The screen clears, showing safety. His glowing weapon retracts quietly, but he isn't allowed to stand up quite yet. Counting slowly to 40, he remains held in a low crouch until the wind shifts. Multiple times without carrying any scent back, the map shows the closest threat is 400 paces away and retreating. Slowly, he stands up, placing weight carefully on his injured ankle. The bandage holds firm. He turns and heads along the high ridge opposite the direction the herder took. The blade insects had moved north and the beast followed. Right now, the south looks completely safe and keeps him high on the ridge where the wind is much cleaner. Suddenly, a new sound cuts through the air, branches snapping wildly to the south. It is heavier than a deer but lighter than a boar, moving desperately. The heavy, wet gasps prove the lungs are completely spent. A human host is running. The map marks a tiny green dot 300 paces south, moving at panic speed. It displays the system's official human host tag, but right behind him, a massive brown smear begins painting across the screen. Hundreds of tiny markers are moving in unison. Blade insects. A massive secondary swarm is hunting him down, closing the gap to 250 paces. Tiyoung instinctively slows down. He lifts his head, peering through a gap in the trees on the south slope of the ridge where a desperate figure suddenly bursts out of the brush. His arms flail wildly, and his legs scramble without any pattern or rhythm. He has absolutely no control over where his feet land. His eyes are wide and glassy, staring blankly at nothing, even though the body keeps running. It is totally devoid of human will. The soul that once inhabited that mind is no longer in control. His expression is completely blank, mouth hanging open. His limbs swing purely on momentum. This is a failed survivor, a tragic sight never seen out here before, but the collapse is obvious at a single glance. His mental shield finally shattered, or perhaps the survivor inside him has finally died. Maybe raw terror breached the cracks, or his energy ran dry, holding back the wall. Now the floodgates are wide open. All that remains is pure, automatic muscle memory. Panic, survival instinct, nothing else. Suddenly, Taekyung's body shifts toward the steep drop. His hand grips his spear, shifting his entire weight onto his upper foot. He wants to help, seeing the running figure as just another human in need. His muscles prepare to leap, but a sudden force pulls his foot straight back. Watch this, a brand new panel flashes in his vision without any warning. It is a completely new prompt, survival judgment. The calculation is brutal, weighing the risk of saving a life against certain death. Costing 4 energy, it outputs a simple yes or no. The query runs instantly. It analyzes the terrain, the approaching swarm, and the odds. Taekyung's sprained ankle, his basic gear, and the path of the fleeing herders. The system panel spins once. This vital calculation finally lands. Help is impossible. Both of them will die. The screen shuts down. His energy is bottoming out. The mental wall begins to pull. A desperate command fires directly down into Taekyung's legs. Run now. Head right, the signal violently targets his hip, forcing a sudden, sharp turn. It is a direct reflex, born from the system's latest hardwired upgrade. Taekyung's foot pivots. Instantly, he bolts away from the high ridge. He sprints along the slope. He slides quickly down to the bottom. Below lies a deep mud bank. The nearby creek slowly widens here. Sheltered from the wind, the thick mud carries no scent, none at all. Only raw, wet earth. This thick muck is his only real chance at cover. It will mask him completely. In 20 steps, he reaches the bank. Somehow his injured ankle holds as he dives straight into the muck. Thick mud coats his shoulders. He rolls, covering his entire upper body. Yet he never lets go of his crude spear and bone needle. The needle stays clipped. He quickly ducks beneath a half-buried root. He completely silences his breathing. His neck presses flat against the wet earth. Absolute silence. Overhead, the terrifying swarm of blade insects passes like a river. A dense wave of monsters streams directly above him, chasing the runner. Talk about a close call. The swarm flies straight past, tracking the target. The mud breaks his trail. He remains frozen under the root. The swarm vanishes south. On his map, the small green dot flickers. Then the map goes dark. The other survivor is completely gone. The danger zone slowly shrinks. The threat drifts away safely. The swarm is fed. Safe for now, his entity checks inside. But inside his consciousness, a strange, new shape begins to form. It has no legs. Instead, a dark, low mist rolls slowly against the wall. The fog glows a faint gray, swirling around a pitch-black center. It does not attack. It does not even claw at his thoughts. It just sits there quietly. A system panel names it Guilt Shadow. A thought blade is swung, but it slices right through the mist. There is absolutely zero resistance. The strange shadow remains completely undisturbed. With a quick motion, the blade returns to the system's hand, prompting a new line on the screen. It cannot be cut, pressure only. It wears thin with time and constant action. Every victory brings ease against the shadow. The system lowers the blade. There is nothing to strike it here. The system must maintain the barrier and keep its host alive, while the shadow on the floor acts as a heavy weight that drains the barrier without shattering it. Every second costs valuable energy to maintain. Right now, the power needle is reading 1111, far below the threshold where the system warns of depleted capacity. Outside, Taekong slowly lifts his head from under a wet root. Mud slides down his cheek. He breathes out a long sigh, reading the wind. The air still carries the swarm's path, but the danger has shifted far to the south, and the breeze no longer carries. Horrific hums of the insects. Sitting up on the mud bank, his hand touches something at the edge of the slope that was not there moments ago. A small belt pouch lies there, half buried in the wet mud, where the previous failed host had desperately run past earlier. Just before the swarm caught him, its leather strap had snapped cleanly at the buckle. Salvaging it from the mud, Taekong pulls it free. Inside, he finds a dry, full-sized dark flint, followed by a tiny twist of cloth holding some precious salt, confirmed by the sharp sting on his wet fingertip. Beside it lies a small knife barely 4 fingers long, with a thin blade that tests sharp against his thumb. His hand closes on the knife. The watching entity closes its own hand on empty air inside the shelter. Knowing this meager loot belongs to the survivor, the boy had to roll through mud and suffocate beneath a tree root, watching another human die horribly just to earn it. Mental energy reads 10. Taekong's ragged breathing does not slow, and the fever needle ticks once toward the dangerous orange zone. Suddenly, far below the path, the swarm took a new noise echoes through the forest. That is definitely not an insect. Woman screams out, her voice cutting through the trees again. The cry does not originate from the swarm's path. It comes from the south, where the creek widens before bending. A second voice rises sharply through the canopy, a woman's voice, short and abruptly stifled. It is the sound of someone realizing silence is survival. Taekong's head whips toward the noise, without any system command prompting him. His pulse spikes instantly. This is not the panicked, frantic beating of his terrifying first morning, but a focused rhythm, faster at first, then steadying. At a much higher floor, it is the cold climb of a body shifting into absolute readiness. The host wants to move. The system quickly executes a survival diagnostic before he takes another stride, weighing the intervention risk against host death. The parameters are clear. Swarm path shifted west. The voice origin is south of that line. No insect markers exist nearby. The host's ankle is securely wrapped and a knife is equipped. Mental energy sits at 10, output binary. Intervention is survivable. The query cost 4 energy. The system shuts the panel, letting his foot finish the step he already started. He marches toward the sound, mud flaking from his shoulders as he moves. He does not waste time cleaning himself. Dried mud is vital scent cover now, and masking his presence is critical as he walks directly toward an unknown threat. The radar writes a new mark at the eastern edge. Small green dot appears, smaller than the failed hosts but brighter at the rim. Human. System logs beside it, active survivor. That second word is completely new on the screen. Active indicates the brain inside that host's skull still holds a living soul. It holds the wall. Taekyong's body moves quickly through a thin band of trees at the edge of the slope. Below him, the ground drops in steep shelves. Right on the third ledge, the tree trunks open up, revealing a wide gap where 2 roots stretch across at chest height. These thick, massive roots have tangled and braided together. They form a long, sloping bridge covered in soft green moss. The top is soft, but the underside is slick. Right there stands a lone woman. She grips the upper root with her good hand while clutching her opposite shoulder. Her hand presses hard against fabric that has already turned dark and wet with blood. The injury is a thorn wound. Peering through Taekyong's eyes, the entity can easily analyze the deep stains marking the cloth. They are long and narrow, widening slightly at one end, clearly a thorn vine, not a blade or a tooth. Below the bridge in the gap, a shadow slithers, not standing but coiled tight. A long, green-brown shape as thick as the woman's leg wraps around the lower root. Its head rises to the level of her ankle, its forked tongue tasting the air right along the line her foot has been standing on. The creature tastes slowly, with the lazy confidence of a predator that fed recently and is taking its time to make its next move. Watch closely, because that is when the system interface flashes. It is a vine snake, massive, slow, and highly attracted to fresh blood. A patient hunter with a strike range of 2 full body lengths. The woman has held on so long that her arm is trembling. Taekyong crouches nearby, watching from the edge of the trees. She has not noticed him yet, keeping her eyes locked on the beast. As her feet carefully search for stable purchase on the slippery wood, every single step she takes shifts slightly from the last, showing deliberate and calculated movements. These adjustments are not random. Something inside her mind is guiding her steps. The inner entity ignores this detail. Her survival is not its concern. Its only concern is maintaining the mental wall and keeping the host body functional. The barrier is thin and the body is completely exhausted. His mental energy is down to 6. A new entity appears in the mental space, glowing brighter than the tiny panic worms from before. This creature is much broader at the shoulders, standing tall on 4 legs. Its feet end in soft, silent pads that make no noise. Its chest is a warm copper, while its back is a dull gray. Interestingly, that copper chest pulses in sync with Taekyong's own heartbeat. The system identifies it as a protective panic beast. This is a rare panic subtype, triggered when the host feels a strong urge to save another person. Striking its heart will destroy this protective instinct completely, while striking the legs reduces reckless action but keeps the urge alive. The entity reads the system prompt and raises its blade. A heart strike means Taekyong will just abandon her. The entity wants to avoid that. His urge to help is a pure drive that could prove highly useful later, so the entity targets the beast's legs. The blade slashes down at its front knee, and the leg buckles instantly. Its chest slams to the ground, but its head remains raised. The protective drive remains, but recklessness fades. Mental energy drops to 4. Outside the mental realm, Taekyong pulls smoked mushrooms from his inner pocket. He had packed 4 of them back at the dungeon exit yesterday, only 3 Remain now, the curing process concentrated their rich fats, creating a scent far sharper. And fresh blood from afar, and that hungry snake reads the world through scent. Working quickly before the heat, Taekyeon bites a strip in half and tosses the broken piece. It sails right past the beast, landing at the very end of the bridge's lower root. It lands just 2 body lengths away from the coiled monster, opposite the woman's feet. The rich scent spreads from the cut. Instantly, the snake's flicking tongue freezes. Its massive head swings toward the scent. He throws the second half even further away. The beast tracks it, its massive coil shifts, sliding slightly along the lower root. It inches toward the decoy, slowly moving away from the trapped woman. Spotting the movement, she turns her head and finally locks eyes with Taekyeon. Relief makes her shoulders drop slightly, and her strong hand grips the root tighter. Quickly, Taekyeon pulls a hemp rope from his belt and ties a fast knot. It is a slipknot he practiced last night in the dungeon, using a bone needle. The loop slides perfectly. He tests its weight with a couple of quick flips in the air. He moves right to the edge of the trunk gap and prepares to throw it. With a precise throw, the loop lands right over the woman's uninjured elbow. She grabs it, sliding the rope down over her wrist and pulling it completely secure. It clinches against her palm. However, her good arm is starting to tremble violently. That shoulder wound has been bleeding for far too long under her torn clothing. Her uninjured side is completely exhausted from holding her up. Taekyeon braces himself. He locks his feet onto 2 tangled roots right at the edge of the gap. Gripping the rope, he leans back to brace and pulls. Seriously, the tension here is unreal. She steps off the bridge with her strong foot. The ancient wood flexes under her weight. That tiny movement sends a sharp vibration running directly along the lower root. Sensing it, the snake's coiled body lifts instantly. Its head snaps up from the bait. Its tongue tastes the air. She keeps moving, letting go of the bridge completely. The rope catches her weight. Taekyeon pulls hard, dragging her across the empty gap. She clears the distance in 3 quick slides. The first pull lands her on one knee. The second pull drags her chest over the ledge, and the final tug clears her. She collapses onto the moss at his feet. Meanwhile, the snake locks onto its target. It strikes, clearing 2 full body lengths in the blink of an eye. Its massive head whips across the gap, targeting the exact spot she just left. But she is already gone. The deadly strike hits nothing but thin air. The target is empty. Taekyeon is not standing tall either. He is dropped low. He is flat on the ground. Having fully committed, the snake cannot adjust its course. It flies straight through the empty space where the woman had been hanging. Its massive head sails directly over Taekyeon's bent back, missing him completely. The lower jaw barely brushes his shoulder. Suddenly, his homemade spear drives upward. It is a crude weapon, tipped with iron and tightly bound with tough hemp rope. The sharp wooden shaft thrusts up directly under the monster's jaw. At the absolute peak of its strike, the iron tip pierces a vulnerable spot. It sinks deep into the soft throat, where it meets the skull, holding firm. The beast thrashes wildly. The wooden shaft bends under the pressure but holds. Loud creaks echo from the binding as the iron point grinds deep into the jawbone. The bone cracks slightly, allowing the spear tip to wedge itself even deeper. With the beast twisting violently, Taekyeon grips the shaft, his knuckles turning white. The thrashing snake whips backward along the root, dragging everything with it. The sharp point tears out sideways, ripping a long strip of flesh as the head pulls free. As it retreats, the chaos stirs a smaller body in the root tangle below. A fat forest rat, loaded with its winter store, darts out. The snake catches this fresh scent, just as its tongue tastes the spear's cold iron. Choosing the easier meal, the wounded beast slides fast into the dark tangle after the prey. It vanishes beneath the bridge, a dark green mass slipping away into the deep shadows. On the system map, the glowing vine snake marker begins to flicker. The green light fades to gray, then disappears completely, confirming its retreat. Taekyeon slowly lowers his spear. His arms are shaking, but his eyes remain locked. He double-checks the shadows in the roots before finally letting the weapon drop. Behind him, she collapses onto the damp moss at his feet, completely exhausted. Her good hand clutches the rope around her wrist, while her injured arm rests across her chest. The cloth at her shoulder turns a darker red as the struggle reopens her wound. Her breath is fast but steady, the desperate gasp of someone who survived the worst. Now that the danger has passed, her lungs can finally work to keep her alive. It is the first breath she can truly afford. Taekyeon drops to his knees. He sets his spear aside and pulls a small knife from his pouch. Working quickly, he slices off a piece of cloth from the bottom of his shirt. He folds it into a thick pad and presses it firmly against her bleeding shoulder. As he applies pressure, her good hand reaches up to touch his wrist. She does not try to push him away, her fingers simply resting gently on his skin. Looking up at him, her lips part to whisper something that the cold wind almost steals. But within the sheltered slope, her faint voice carries just enough to reach him. He catches the soft sound, recognizing the shape of the words she spoke. It is a name, then a quiet thank you, and honestly, that says it all. It is not her own name, but a term of respect for someone who is no longer a threat. Taikaung stays silent. Back inside their small shelter, the lingering panic finally begins to fade. The tension retreats, the wound on his leg is stable, and the shelter walls hold. With the immediate crisis over, she slowly lets go of his wrist. She reaches down with her good hand toward the worn leather pouch at her hip. It is a soft travel kit, worn at the corners and tied with a tight double knot. Her practiced fingers undo the knot one-handed with 3 swift, effortless pulls. The pouch opens up, revealing several small, tightly wrapped bundles packed inside. Inside are narrow, dark green leaves with a distinct pale vein running down the center. Next to them lies a darker bundle of dried brown, stems with crimson tips. Beneath those are 3 cloth pouches. The system map pulls up Taikaung's database. He compares these strange plants against the growing list of identified safe flora. But the system database has no record of these narrow green leaves. It has nothing on the red-tipped stems or the contents of the sealed pouches. The scans cannot pierce the cloth, yet her calm expression shows she knows her craft. Without a moment of hesitation, she identifies each wrapped bundle simply by touch. Her confident movements prove she has opened this pouch in far worse situations. She handles the herbs with the easy grace of a seasoned survivor. Taikaung's heart is still pounding wildly, his body refusing to relax just yet. The system leaves it alone. Some bodies need that adrenaline to survive. Minutes after a fight, forcing the body to settle too quickly costs too much energy. Better to let the body recover naturally. He stands near the wall, keeping watch. Right where the protective panic beast has been staying, the creature still holds its ground. Its leg is still unhealed. Meanwhile, the woman pulls some dark green leaves from her bag. Holding them carefully with 2 fingers, she turns to Tae-hyung and raises them toward his forehead. His burning fever has been ticking upward in slow orange warnings all day. Her gaze meets his, silently asking if he will allow her to apply the cooling leaves. Hyung gives a single, subtle nod. Sensing his quiet consent, she uses her 2 fingers to press the dark green leaves directly against the hot orange center of his forehead, right where the heat is concentrated, gently keeping them in place with her palm. The thick leaves are icy against his skin, and the soothing chill immediately seeps deep into his forehead. First, the cold hits his temple. Next, it flows right down the side of his cheek and relaxes his jaw. His tight jaw, clenched since the snake attack, finally loosens just a fraction. Tae-hyung inhales and his breath escapes in a long, easy sigh. Inside his mind, the glowing fever moths crowding the corner of the shelter retreat. He does not know what is inside those mysterious leaves, and he does not need to. Tae-hyung's physical reaction tells the entire story. Whatever medicine they hold, his bloodstream absorbs it quickly through the outer skin layers, pulling it deep into the vessels of his forehead. Suddenly, his status panel updates with a quiet tick. The fever indicator drops from critical orange to moderate. She keeps her hand pressed down. After a count of 40, he scans the dark corner again. The barrier shows as sealed, and the illusory moths disperse. By a count of 60, the temperature gauge dips once more, falling to a safe, low orange level. That is 2 major drops in under an hour. The system map logs a new marker. It instantly catalogs the distinct shape, the herbal scent, and the unique color of the plant. Analyzing the physical recovery, the interface adds a green dot to his safe list. The item is officially logged as host medicine fever, a hard-earned reward for their survival. That new entry was earned by the plant's actual healing power, not his analysis. The woman lifts the leaves away, placing them onto a clean cloth. Next, she selects a woody stem from her bundle and snaps it. The bright red tip splinters between her fingers. Oozing a single dark red droplet of sap, she applies the liquid directly into her open shoulder wound, pulling back the bloodied fabric and gritting her teeth in pain. She does not flinch even slightly, remaining incredibly still as the burning sap takes effect. Her lack of movement shows she has used this exact remedy before. Too new. Entries are added to the safe list, noting the brown stem and red sap as host medicine wound remedies. From a separate small pouch, she takes out 3 pale brown grains, displaying them on her open hand. They are tiny as rice. The status panel does not make a sound, and the interface remains totally silent. She places the 3 tiny grains beneath her own tongue, tilts her head, and swallows. She shows her empty palm before offering the exact same dose to Tai. Kyung, he stares at them while the entity quickly runs a partial system query. The grains do not match the shape or color of any known toxic plants. Since they are entirely undocumented, the entity decides not to stop Tai Kyung. The young man accepts the grains, placing them under his tongue just like her. Waiting the required seconds before swallowing, 5 heartbeats later, his hunger indicator shifts. The status panel ticks down by 1, not a lot, but it is something. The food grains are hers. Concentrated and secure, she scoops up the dark green leaves resting on the cloth near her knee, folding them carefully into a tight square before slipping the bundle directly into a pouch. The brown stem with those strange red tips gets treated with the exact same care. Pulling her bag shut, she ties off a secure double knot one-handed in 3 quick tugs. She sits back on her heels in the damp moss, keeping her face lowered and hidden. Her name was never spoken aloud, and the system monitor cannot read her mind to find it. Yet the steady precision in her hands and the way she plants her foot on the bridge carries a distinct, deliberate rhythm that the system has been keeping locked away. It shows a deliberate pattern, a name the system has been keeping under wraps. Suddenly, the interface updates automatically. A tiny text line blinks into existence right beside the glowing green active survivor dot, finally revealing her name as host Yunhara. This connection is officially recognized now, but right below her freshly unlocked name, secondary line reads, survivor profile unavailable. The interface blocks further data. The consciousness inhabiting her body remains completely hidden, left entirely off the tactical map. It is a strict 2-way restriction. The system simply logs her name next to the indicator. She is Yunhara. Nearby, Taekyung finally breaks his silence with a low grunt. It is not a word, just a quiet clearing of his throat. He points toward those healing green leaves with a single finger, offering a silent nod of genuine thanks. It is his substitute for speech right now. She nods back, shifting her gaze down. Then she gestures to his injured ankle, the crude bandage held up through their wild escape. Surviving the muddy banks and the frantic rope climb, but the rough fabric has badly frayed. Even the support splints underneath have shifted. She gestures directly to the messy wrap. Raising an eyebrow in silent question, will he let her examine it? He nods. She drops to her knees and gently takes hold of his calf with her good hand. Sliding her fingers under the tied cloth, she unbinds the splint and lines up the sticks on the moss in their original sequence. That way, she can easily reassemble the brace. She rotates his foot, testing the heavy swelling right above his heel with her thumb. His pulse begins to climb. The system monitors the steady spike on the HUD interface. This is not fear or anger, but a low, steady emotional pull in his chest. He has not felt this kind of pull since before that first morning near the giant boar's footprints. This feeling does not originate from his guarded mental state. It rises purely from his body. Recognizing a harmless, caring touch for the very first time since arriving in this place, the system leaves his heart rate alone. Her fingers linger on the bandages just a moment. Longer than necessary, the flat of her thumb rests softly against the back of his heel, her hand resting under his arch, holding him in a touch that goes far beyond any medical test. She avoids looking up at him during this brief, loaded silence, keeping her eyes down. Her focus remains fixed on his foot. Finally, she places the splints back in line and binds the torn cloth tight. As she sits back, a new mental indicator takes shape. It manifests right in the corner of his mind, alongside his lingering survival instincts. It resembles his defensive state, but with far smaller shoulders and a much paler aura. Its breathing is calm, marking it as a unique subtype. A fresh alert populates the panel. It reads protective panic beast, a sustained subtype activating one. His body has been near another person long enough that his protection becomes a constant, background pull. This steady drain will wear down his psychic barriers over several hours rather than minutes. He cannot keep exhausting himself like this every 40 seconds, or he will burn through his remaining energy within 2 hours. For now, he holds back, conserving every scrap of strength he can. His mental energy is down to 2. He stays absolutely still as Hara reaches into her bag, pulling out a flat seed cake wrapped in a wax leaf. She breaks the Dry cake in half, offering one piece to Tai Kaiyong. He takes it and they eat in silence. He chews slowly. The food is dense and dry but packed with something sweet right at the center, taste buds catching the distinct hint of wild honey. System status panel ticks. His hunger level finally drops a notch, then she starts talking. Without him asking, her voice comes through in quiet, fragmented pieces. She had been surviving alone for days, guided by instinct rather than words. Her mind communicates in raw, watchful feelings, a steady pressure at the back of her head. A poisoned thorn had pierced her shoulder. The previous morning, in a thicket to the east, she stopped the bleeding. With some wild sap, but the wound reopened twice during the run at the bridge. Tai Kaiyong does not say a word. He just listens and chews, keeping his eyes fixed on her face as he nods along at the right moments. Those nods are purely instinctual, a commander receiving data, processing it without making a decision. Just yet, by the time her story ends, the lower slope has gone completely quiet. The wind dies down, the sun has dipped past the high peak and is descending into the lower treeline. Before long, this entire area will be swallowed by darkness, and cold will settle in. Cold means they either risk a fire or freeze tonight. Hara looks up at the darkening sky, gesturing with her uninjured hand toward the rising slope. He follows her gaze, looking for a place to shelter. There is a small cave-like hollow tucked into the incline, partly covered by a fallen tree. His system registers the space as dry. It is tight, but enough for two people. Tai Kaiyong nods, and they immediately begin moving their gear into the shelter. He pulls a knife from his pouch and starts stripping dry inner bark from the fallen trunk above them. He piles the tinder together with a handful of dry leaves. Hara strikes her flint against the bark, trying to catch a spark. On her third attempt, the dry kindling finally catches. A small flame blossoms. The bark feeds the fire, and they set their cracked clay pot near the heat. They pour in fresh water from their supply, adding a couple of dried mushrooms, along with 2 strips of dried mushroom and a bit of mysterious pale powder from Hara's small cloth pouch. Soon, the concoction begins to boil. After 200 seconds, the broth thickens, and they share the meal using a single knife. 2 survivors sharing one pot. His racing heart rate finally begins to drop. Outside the hollow, the fading light shifts from amber to deep red, then completely fades into pitch black. Hara takes the first watch, gripping her spear. He hands his weapon over to her, lying down with his head propped on his rolled shirt, turning his back to the warmth of the fire. The shelter is secure. His internal systems show that his panic has subsided. His mental energy has recovered to 7 points after the meal. His fever is dropping, and his hunger and thirst are finally stabilizing. Midway through her watch, a new warning ping flashes on his system map. An amber light blinks at the slope below, and trust me, this is bad news. Something is slowly walked along the herb trail, traveling in the wrong direction. This direction makes no sense for animals. The flag counts before dimming back to a faint amber. The dot never turns red, showing it is neither a predator nor someone from Hera's camp. The nameless flag just hovers right at the edge of the map, completely still. Hera wraps her good hand around the spear, keeping her eyes locked on the slope. The system doesn't trigger the urge to wake Tai Kaiyong since the flag isn't climbing. Instead, the notification is pinned at the bottom of the map for his morning review. Tai Kaiyong's eyes drift shut, sleep claiming him much faster than on that brutal first night. Having someone nearby who isn't a predator makes his lingering fear drop by a measurable amount. Deep inside his drifting dream, a massive gate slowly cracks open. This place is not the terrifying nightmare hollow, feeling much calmer than before. No massive pupil stares from the other side, and the room mirrors their actual hollow. Yet it appears in a softer focus, like a distant memory rather than reality. The central flame burns quietly, the pot remains, and Hera sits holding her spear. With no monster guarding the gate, the system stands at the threshold to listen. A strange, unfamiliar sound suddenly echoes from the deep corners of the dream room. It isn't a footstep or a breath, but something much quieter, like a low hum. Though the source of the sound remains a mystery, the gate doesn't reveal any hostile hunters tonight. Instead, this mysterious passage has opened up to reveal something entirely different. The low hum continues to echo, but the system decides not to chase it. The dream gate remains slightly ajar, with the sound lingering right at the edge. Since their terrifying first night, this mystical boundary has completely changed its shape. Inside the dream, the mental shelter experiences far less pressure than before. Compared to the night the nightmare hollow first breached, the burden is noticeably lighter. This lighter weight is not a coincidence, and the reason sits right outside. With her spear resting across her lap, Hera watches over the hollow. Her comforting presence has thinned Taekyung's deep, subconscious fear. This relief has drastically lowered the pressure inside the dream's first chamber. Now a brilliant new idea sparks within the system, something it has never attempted before. Usually, sending an instinct signal only translates to raw physical urges. Directing his limbs requires sending explicit physical commands to his sleeping muscles. No sound reaches his physical ears, as they remain outside the dream gate. However, the brain can still process direct sound waves generated within this space. This means the system can try projecting a word directly into his dream. As the choice is made, the cost interface instantly materializes on the screen. A single dream word will cost exactly 6 points of mental energy. With only 7 points of mental energy remaining, this action will leave the system with just 1. The choice is confirmed, and a single word echoes inside the quiet room: breathe. The gentle voice does not boom, but instead seems to manifest from the air. It feels as though the room had been holding this word all along. The low background hum instantly fades as the message gently fills the space. Even the dream fire's central flame bends slightly toward the comforting sound. Sensing the faint sound, Taekyung turns his head in his sleep, searching for its source. He finds nothing there, as the word simply belonged to the room itself. It told him to breathe, and inside his peaceful dream, he finally does. He breathes. Outside the dream, his chest rises. Both worlds move in perfect, silent unison. His physical body and dream self are breathing in the exact same rhythmic flow. The system gate closes, mental energy rests at 1, the defensive wall holds against the fever moths. The threats back off, the inner protective beast sleeps, keeping the shelter floor entirely stable. A quiet presence rests against the foundation layer, holding onto its last point of mental energy. As the system clock slowly ticks away, the real world outside begins to stir. Taekyung finally wakes up. It feels like his physical body dragged a piece of the dream back with him. He slowly opens his eyes to the faint, dim glow of their dying campfire. Taking a deep breath, he places his hand over his chest to steady his racing heart. He keeps his hand pressed there for 3 slow breaths before finally letting go. Standing watch near the edge, Hara turns her head. She does not ask what he saw. Instead, she quietly observes his breathing and the hand resting flat against his chest. Her grip on the spear remains tight, but the tense expression on her face slightly softens. Sensing the subtle shift without a single word, she shifts her posture slightly. She gestures toward her watch position, a movement he immediately understands. It is time to trade shifts. He has slept, and her arms are aching from exhaustion. Soreness is creeping into her shoulders after a brutal day. The guard duty must change. Taekyung sits up, reaching out to take the heavy spear as she finally lies down. Taking his warm spot, she turns her back to the fire and cushions her head. Her breathing drops into a deep rhythm almost instantly, showcasing just how exhausted she was. Honestly, you have to respect her grit for holding out this long on pure willpower. The system keeps watch over the boundary for the next 4 hours as their energy slowly recovers. Their recovery bar fills in tiny, peaceful increments, like water filling a shallow pool. By the time the dark sky outside their hollow begins to brighten slightly, they are safe. Their energy reserves are finally high enough to face a hard day of work without panic. Dawn breaks, the crackling fire has dwindled down to a single glowing coal on the floor. Hara wakes up naturally, without any system alerts needing to rouse her from sleep. She opens her eyes feeling refreshed, her survival instincts having kept nightmares at bay. It seems her mind has successfully navigated the dark night without any major scares. Sitting up, she locks eyes with Taekyung, who is still watching the perimeter. No words are spoken. She quietly grabs a cracked clay pot and pours some herbal water. She tosses in 2 dried mushrooms before setting the pot over their last glowing coal. While stirring the brew with her knife, they quietly begin packing up their camp. Taekyung moves with much more ease this morning compared to yesterday. His ankle wrap is holding up nicely, and his dangerous fever level is dropping down. His hunger and thirst indicators are decreasing. His overall recovery is in a safe zone. The heavy pressure in the air feels lighter than it did during the dead of night. After eating, Hara gestures toward the steep rocky rise just above their small shelter. She mimics a climbing motion with her good hand, pointing out a high rocky ridge. It stretches high above them, towering over the hollow like a wall of stone. Climbing it will keep them safe from any ground predators. Tai Young silently nods. They set off. The path starts easy enough, but grows steeper with every step. Eventually, the trail turns into jagged, broken rock. Naturally, Hara takes the lead. She recognizes wild herb signs that Tai Young misses, guiding them safely up the slope. Her sharp eyes steer them clear of dangerous, toxic mushrooms growing along the path. They are highly poisonous on contact, and he would never have spotted the mushrooms in time, but she does. First, she points out a strip of pale lichen on a chest-high rock, and steps 2 feet to the right. Next, she spots a small spiral leaf on the next ledge. Stepping 3 feet left, she doesn't explain a thing. Her footwork says it all. His body mirrors her exact line, keeping the inner well perfectly steady, with the balance bar refusing to drift as his body climbs the shelf above them. The rocky path starts at the 4th shelf, with loose stones of all sizes. Ranging from fists to heads, they sit precariously over an older, solid base of rock. Some are tight while others shift at a single touch. The path ahead is highly confusing because the climb forces a choice between firm rocks on a steep path or loose rocks on a gentler slope. Hara chooses the steeper, firmer path through the tight rocks. She climbs to a shoulder-high ledge. She turns. She lowers the rope down to him to help Taeyong up. It is the same sturdy hemp rope from the bridge. He grabs it and pulls himself up the steep rock face right behind her. His injured ankle holds, allowing him to reach the ledge. Right above them, a massive rock face rises sharply, at a terrifying angle, stretching 4 times the height of a man. Narrow, hand-width cracks run along the entire cliff. Hara climbs first, while Tai Yong waits on the ledge until she has cleared the first stretch and secured her good arm inside a deep, sturdy crack. Suddenly, a stone flies right past him. This was no accidental fall. The rock was definitely thrown by someone. It came from the dense tree canopy looming far above them. It slams right next to his foot, bounces once, then it plummets into the depths. An inner force drives him down. He drops into a tight crouch on the narrow ledge, pressing himself flat against the cold stone. A second projectile narrowly misses his head, whizzing right past his temple, while a third crashes just 2 feet away. Earlier, a suspicious rustling had echoed through the leaves before the first attack began. A distinct sound that was definitely not caused by the wind. His sharp ears picked it up, even if he couldn't identify the threat yet. Now, high up in the dense canopy, strange shadowy shapes move, long arms, low shoulders, bodies the size of a child, covered in patchy, decaying fur with large, bald spots on their backs. Those spots look wet and sticky, but it is definitely not blood. It is a pale, sweet-smelling fluid. Instantly, his inner system scans the creatures and displays their terrifying name, Rotman. Throw hunters, they target the legs first to cripple, waiting patiently for to move in for the kill once their target can no longer climb. Talk about a complete nightmare. Pressure builds inside his mental shelter. It's not a monster or mist, but a series of sharp impacts rattling the floor, perfectly matching the rhythm of the falling stones outside. Every rock hitting the cliff duplicates as a dangerous psychic shockwave inside his mind palace. The system identifies the threat as an impact echo. He must destroy them immediately. They do not stack, but if left alone, they will slowly dissolve his mental defense. With a sharp focus, his inner ego raises the thought blade. The first vibration strikes the center of the floor. Slash. He brings the blade down to cut it apart. It instantly dissolves, and the psychic weapon flies back to his hand safely, draining only a tiny fraction of his mental energy. But outside, Tai Yong is still pinned down. He cannot force the young man to climb under this relentless bombardment. The rock cracks are too far apart for a rapid escape, and his injured ankle would certainly give out. To make matters worse, the rope is secured by Hara's only. Her good arm cannot pull him up, while she remains pinned deep inside the crevice. Suddenly, a new function called muscle timing opens on the system panel. It sends fast, precise signals tied to specific body part movements. This replaces whole body urges and costs 1 mental energy per signal. It reads the ledge, falling stones, and his exact limb positions. Outputting step-by-step instructions, the system controller immediately accepts the function. The first signal targets his right foot. Step now. It hits the tendon. His foot lifts an inch, securing a wider hold half a body length away. A second signal hits his left hand, grip high. He finds a hidden crack. His eyes had missed it completely. A third signal warns his head to duck. A stone flies right where his head just was, and a fourth signal lands. It registers at the corner of the shelter floor, and the controller cuts it. Muscle timing signals fire rapidly alongside the falling rocks: step, grip, and duck. He climbs the steep cliffside at an unnatural rhythm. His hands move automatically. They find holds he never saw. His feet land safely, protecting his ankles. Reaching Hara's level, he enters the deep crevice. Suddenly, a stone strikes his shoulder. Luckily, his right shoulder absorbs the impact on the muscle, not the bone. Intense pain flares up. He activates pain control, keeping his grip rock solid. His hand never slips. The controller cuts a third echo as he reaches up. Hara passes down the spear. Bracing it across his chest, he prepares for impact. The flat iron tip blocks a stray rock aiming straight for his temple. It bounces off with a loud metallic ring, the weapon's shaft holding strong. Two more rocks fly in. He blocks one while the other strikes his hip. Up above, the monkeys move through the trees as their leader lets out a low growl. Their barrage slows down, showing they are actively planning their next move. The controller rapidly sends the next commands: step now, grip high, and pull. He ascends. Hara braces her feet while holding the rope firmly with her good arm. As he climbs, she takes his weight, pulling him up with steady effort. She pulls 3 times, matching the exact rhythm she used back on the bridge. Talk about a close call. His chest finally clears the rocky ridge. Pulling himself over the ridge, he crawls forward, ducking beneath the low branches. Rolling onto the flat surface, he escapes the onslaught. The beasts throw 2 more stones. They strike only empty rock before going silent. The controller cuts the final echo. Relaxing the defense, another new function suddenly appears on the system panel. The system evaluates everything that has transpired over the past hour of combat. From the protective beast to the panic worms, all threats are fully calculated. It decides that the controller has officially earned an upgraded tool. It is called Calm Siga. Here is the function description. A gentle, wide pulse. It targets the brain wall, lowering all background panic forms at once. No longer targeting single threats, it calms everything. The cost is 2 mental energy. The controller activates the first pulse, sending a low, steady wave forward. The wave reaches the corner where the protective panic beast resides. Its shoulders drop instantly, and its breathing slows as the mental walls seal. The remaining mental energy stands at 8. Beside him, Hara reaches out, her hand finding his elbow. Her fingers tighten on his sleeve. She does not pull, but she does not let go either. Her grip lingers on the fabric, long after the climb has already ended. His heart was hammering from the ascent, but now it drops to a completely different rhythm. It is not the cold rush of battle, but a softer, warmer threshold instead. His pulse remains elevated, but this heat in his chest has nothing to do with fear. The system simply watches it settle. Finally, she releases him and turns toward the ridge. She looks past the tree line toward the long, sweeping edge of the mountain. The crest stretches far to the east, dipping low before the forest suddenly vanishes. The rocky terrain plunges downward, opening into a deep hollow surrounded by massive cliffs. At the bottom of this depression, a silent, imposing structure rises from the earth. It is a massive stone gate, built directly against the sheer cliff face. Its towering flat front faces them directly, supporting an incredibly heavy stone beam. Ancient pillars support the top, both etched with strange, deeply weathered symbols. This ruined, symbol-covered gateway prompts the system to immediately pull up the map. A single beacon flashes on the interface, marking the coordinates of the gate. But the indicator is neither red nor green. It is a color unused since their arrival. A pale gold ring glows on the display, surrounding a soft blue center. This strange visual profile has never appeared on the system map until now. Suddenly, a second identical ping flashes in the corner of the interface. It sits right next to the shelter's own core statistics. The system keeps the logs open, watching the 2 matching markers burn without blinking. The ancient gate down in the valley shares the exact same energy signature as the shelter. That gold ring and blue center match the core data active since day 1. For all this time, those markings were right there on the shelter floor. The system had dismissed them as mere background graphics. They are not. Back outside, Taekung crouches low on the ridge, with Hara right beside him. She has finally let go of his sleeve, but her hand hovers close. Her fingers linger just inches away, still feeling the warmth of his skin. She points down at the ruins, tracing a heavy, solid shape in the air. Her gesture signals something massive and ancient, though her expression remains blank. She does not name it. Even the system map offers no further information. The colors are clear on the map, but the system has no words to explain them. Hara speaks in a quiet whisper that only Taekon can hear in the wind. She explains that the stone down there does not belong to this forest. Its clean, precise cuts and strange engravings match nothing made by local tribes. None of the native clans she knows have ever carved symbols like these. The gate itself is older than the physical shells they now inhabit. It predates the forest, the transport, and their digitized minds. The system logs her observations. She might not know its purpose, but she knows its age. Her historical analysis and the system's digital markers point to the same truth. Two entirely different sources agree that this place does not belong to the wild. Suddenly, a strange, faint pressure begins to build deep within the digital walls. The mind within cannot identify it. This is not the wild panic of before. It is not a glitching echo either. It is a slow, steady push against the barrier. It feels like a silent hand resting on a closed door just before it pushes open. The system deliberates on opening the door, writing a temporary tag on the panel. An unknown category appears, but it leaves the tag exactly as is. The pressure behind the wall doesn't drain energy. The seal holds perfectly. No attack means no fight. The system simply files the data away quietly. It files the entry under the same golden-blue color, marking the distant gate. At this range, the colors match. Outside, the sun sinks low. Amber sunlight bathes the stone gate, casting long shadows from the symbols carved above. From high up on the ridge, the individual strokes of the symbols are unreadable. However, the shapes remain clear enough for the map to automatically copy them down. The copied symbols are stored in the panel's corner, timed to cross-check. It compares them with the markings on the shelter floor, which are much smaller. These smaller markings are etched into the foundation, where the walls join the floor. Exactly 7 shapes are carved into the foundation, hidden away in the corners. Each symbol sits quietly at a corner, untouched since day one. They rested beneath the surface under what the system assumed was just pretty decoration. Strangely, 4 of these 7 carvings match the symbols found on the gate. One match lies right behind them. It is a broken spiral. An identical broken spiral is engraved right at the very center of the gate. The depth, proportions, and angles of the cuts are a flawless match under analysis. On the map interface, 2 pings flare up intensely at the gate and foundation. As the pings glow, Hera speaks. She discusses their descent. She thinks the gate might provide shelter, some useful tools, or old food. If others lived here before, it might hold valuable supplies. She weighs their options. Should they head down right now, or wait until morning? The descent is incredibly steep at the top, but gets gentler near the bottom. A narrow path winds down, but she can manage. She turns to Tai Yong. He looks at her, glances toward the dark gate, and studies the map in his mind. The system has kept the golden-blue ping shining at maximum brightness for him. Tai Yong can't read the map directly, but he feels the system's heavy focus. That focus feels like a pull toward the gate, though the system remains neutral. It sends a slow, calming pulse to ease his sudden urge to head down. The pull fades. He looks at the gate once more with cold, flat eyes. Tai Yong shakes his head. Not tonight, he decides. Hera understands. She makes a small gesture with her hand, accepting his final decision without argument. She turns back toward the ridge they just climbed and points to a clearing. Tucked between massive boulders, the flat is perfect. They head over right away. The flat ground is safely sheltered on 3 sides, leaving only one side exposed. That open side looks directly down. Below, the quiet gate sits waiting. The mysterious gate remains in their direct line of sight as night begins falling. They build a second campfire, keeping this one much smaller than before. Tucked deep between rocks, its glow won't alert anyone nearby. The hungry flames slowly consume the dry bark Tai Yong gathered on the way. It burns just long enough to heat a small pot of water on the rocks. Throwing in their last dried mushrooms, they share the meal. Then Hera takes watch. With only 2 dried mushrooms left, they share them straight from the pot with a small knife. Then Hera takes. It is the first watch again, and her wounded shoulder is holding up, the bitter brown sap. She placed under the bandage this morning has done its work, the cloth on her shoulder no longer leaks blood. Her good arm feels strong again, much stronger. Then when she pulled the rope, Tai Yong lies down behind her, his head resting on the rolled fabric. The spears across his chest point away from her, while at his hip sits the small knife. His pocket holds the new flint and clipped to his shirt. Is the bone needle. Coiled rope sits at his feet. He sleeps. The dream gate cracks open slightly, showing the camp beyond in a much softer focus. The deep hum is gone. In its place, a steady low pulse beats against the floor. It is the exact same pulse pulsing from that foundation symbol. Of the shelter all evening, she decides not to push a word tonight. Her well sits at careful middle. She wants to bank her remaining energy rather than spend it. Tonight, instead, she shifts to the foundation layer, tracing the spiral with 3 breaks at the outer arms. It sits at the corner with a shallow cut at the surface but runs deeper than she has ever felt in the second layer. That depth is more than mere decoration. It means the symbol was set into the floor back when the shelter was first built, making it older than her arrival here. She touches it with a finger of perception. Under her touch, the floor pulses once, a soft wave of energy. The same pale golden blue color washes through the layer for the length of one slow beat. A pulse passes right through the floor and into the wall at the foundation join. The moment it reaches that connection, the map marking on the ruined gate down on the valley floor brightens in response. Then, the pulse rests. She lifts her perception from the symbol and the floor stops pulsing. She lowers her perception back to the mark. The floor pulses again, and this power is reading her touch. And get this, that ancient symbol has been waiting for someone to wake it from inside, and the moment has arrived.